everyone. Welcome to the Transatlantic Call-In Show, the show where you can call in and explain why... Oh, sorry, I had my tablet back on. The show where you can call in and explain why you think JK Rowling is actually God. And we will address your claims in real time. This week, you can talk to me, Katy Montgomerie, and the other half of the OG Dream Team.
Hello, it's me, Arden Hart, back again, once again. We are the Dream Team. Let's be honest. I'm hosting almost every week. I think I'm basically the prime director.
You're the show.
Yeah.
Without Arden, this show wouldn't exist, and without me, no one would watch it. So there you go.
It hurts. Okay, but yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to Transatlantic. I'm so excited to get to your calls today. If you are interested in calling, the number is right below us. It's 720-619-2288. Or if you are out of the US, there is a toll-free web link in the description where you can call in there. We are taking calls right now. Priority is always going to go to gender-critical style callers, just so we can help, address common misconceptions and stuff like that. But Katy, how was your last week, since we've been on 2 weeks in a row for the first time in like a really long time?
First time in a while. I don't know what's even happened in the last week. Not that much stuff. Went on the weather's starting to get good here. We've randomly had a day where it snowed, and then by like the evening all the snow was gone, and the next day it was sunny and it was really nice. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting day and a half. Other than that, just kind of cruising along, living, playing Pokemon cards as much as I can, normal people stuff.
How normal people stuff. Nothing too crazy. I know it was Super Tuesday this past Tuesday, which is where we do our primary elections, but Matt and I totally forgot. To be fair, the primary elections are not really like consequential because you're just kind of voting for who you want to vote for in the actual election. The general election in November, which is a really weird way to do it. But also, we totally did forget this thing I'm about to say as a side note from it. Normally, we get new voter cards issued to us. And while Matt and a friend who stays at our house got their voter cards, I never did. And it's probably just a fluke, but I can't help from being like, the government of Texas is denying trans people voter cards. No, I don't think that's really what happened. It was just I'm a forgetful person, and that's probably what the reason is. But yeah, nothing too crazy. Last week we started 2 new shows. What was it last week? Yeah, Chewed Gum and N Boss, our new debate show. Both of which went really well. I know some people had some legitimate complaints about N Boss not being N Boss enough. Like, there wasn't as much combative head-to-headness, because the whole goal was for Matt to help the challenger build up the strongest version of their argument, face all the scrutiny from the callers, and then to dig in on them himself. So a lot of people felt like the challenger got a little too much time to talk without pushback, which...
Right.
Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But it was a really fun show to produce. Chewed Gum got its second show up, and now here we are. We're back around to Transatlantic once again. So we will get to polls in just a second. I want to really quickly run down the announcement list for the line. While Transatlantic is the best show on the line, as I always say, there are some other shows that you can check out if you really want to. For example, this Sunday on the Sunday show is going to be Jimmy and Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. That is our theist call-in show. So if you believe in a god or something supernatural, you want to call in to defend that belief, that's where you can do that. On Monday on Skep Talk, we have Forrest Valkai with a unconfirmed guest. I think we're really close to locking it in, but unconfirmed as of right now. But that's going to be on Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Next Tuesday will be Eve and Alyssa Lube back again for Chewed Gum. And then next Wednesday, the 13th, on the Hang Up will be Matt Dillahunty and Dr. Daryl Ray from Recovering from Religion. So that'll be really exciting. Of course, we love Daryl Ray. We're ramping up towards our RFR fundraiser in a couple months, so I'm sure you'll start seeing some faces from that organization again. And then, actually, it's going to be Katy and I back again next week again. So I don't know you guys did. There's some crazy karma there, but are you ready to dive into the last week's polls?
Yeah, so let's see what question we asked last week. Yeah, I forgot about this one. So, is it okay to read Harry Potter erotica in public? And we got 71% yes, which is interesting. I'm probably more interested to see what the comments had to say. I suspect most people who encountered this were just like, it's okay to read anything, like, you can read a book in public as long as it's
Yeah.
like forcing it down other people's throats.
That was a lot of the comments. I saw people talking about reading it out loud potentially being a problem. People mentioned the issue with minors being the characters being a problem. Somebody did have an excellent comment, which was something to the effect of, only if you do the voices right.
Oh,
which
God.
I thought was pretty good.
Pretty cringe.
Yeah.
But yeah, for anyone who missed it, this is about one of the leaders of probably the biggest anti-trans group in the UK, Sex Matters, was caught reading Harry Potter erotica on a train in really big font, big enough that someone like several seats away could see it. And she said it was for research. I mean, she wrote an article about it 2 years ago, so it could be like, research for that article she did 2 years ago. She's just a fucking weirdo. But also, she has now apparently reported the person who saw her doing it to the police, because there's no one more entitled than gender critical people, like the most entitled people on earth. And they're trying to say that, oh, this person was a creep, a pervert, like trying to call them a pervert because they were reading porn over her shoulder or something. Just standard level, gender critical, entitled, deranged rubbish.
Yeah.
But she was obviously very embarrassed because the whole gender critical community came out to be like, so what if she's reading Harry Potter porn on the train? What about trans people who are bad? So they
Right, of course.
they were embarrassed by it. Because it's embarrassing. Because it's,
I just don't even
like,
I don't completely understand UK law. Like, how could you report to the police that you were reading something on a train in really big font and somebody happened to see it? Like, that's your fault.
If you're middle class, like dickhead, and you're white and straight and well-to-do, then you can report anyone to the police for anything. Like, there's no limit. They're not going to push back. They're just going to be. The police will probably apologize to you. They'll probably record it as a non-hate incident or something, and it won't come to anything. Like, the police aren't going to turn up to anyone's house. But what they will do is they will call her back up and be like, oh, we had to follow up your case, and here's your case number, and all this kind of procedural rubbish, which is just a waste of everyone's time. But yeah, so
that was last week's poll. If you it
was a good day. It was a good funny day.
Yeah,
when this came out.
If you missed last week's poll, that's okay, because we have another poll ready for you this week.
Actually, wait, just before we go on, there is one extra aspect of it, which is, I've never read any kind of erotica stuff like this. It's not really my scene. But from seeing the conversations around this topic, a lot of people said, of course, reading Harry Potter erotica is fine if the characters are aged up, which apparently a lot of people who write film or, I don't know, book or whatever, fantasy about the other characters, fan fiction, that's the word. Apparently people who write fan fiction often make the characters all canonically 18, even though they might not have been in the story, so that it's not grim. And allegedly, also I haven't read this one or looked at it or even clicked on the link because I don't want to, they weren't in this story, which I do think changes the question. Like, is it okay to read some saucy book in public as long as it's not like huge font that everyone can see and you're not reading it out loud to children or something? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it's about children having sex, then suddenly it's a bit more yuck. So
yeah.
Anyway,
it's such a weird situation because, like, I feel like in fantasy, you can just auto age people up in your brain so you don't have to even encounter this issue at all. I don't understand why that wouldn't just be an automatic step all the time, unless you're explicitly searching out this for arguably nefarious reasons. But regardless, That is not my circus, not my monkeys. This new week's poll, if you didn't get to vote in the last one, is following the coverage of JK Rowling's explicit misgendering and bigoted comments towards India Willoughby, do you think disaffected moderates will finally start acknowledging JK as transphobic? So, as usual, my polls are wordy and annoying in that way. So this comes from JK Rowling this past week, responded to somebody being like, oh, do you think this person should be using the men's restroom? And they used an image of India Willoughby. And JK Rowling responded, oops, I don't have it up. It's something about, this is a man. This person is doing a narcissistic cosplay of what a man thinks a woman is, or something to that effect.
It's just a woman dancing. It's just a normal video of a woman dancing that you might see in anything.
Right. And so the reason I was talking about the disaffected moderates thing is because if you've been in the trans conversation a long time, you'll probably have heard something to the effect of, well, listen, I support trans people, but I don't understand the attacks on JK Rowling. I don't think she's transphobic. She's just voicing her opinions, or something to that effect. And I think if you're going to hold to that position, JK Rowling could simply have responded yes to this post, right? Yes, I do think that person should use the men's room. That would be in concordance with her views and would not be like explicit harassment in that post, even though like I would find that objectionable. But she didn't just say, yes, I do think that. She said, yes, this narcissistic man is cosplaying as a woman. It's this whole deranged addendum that is clearly nothing but transphobia. And so I would like to think, I would probably vote no in this poll, to be clear, but I would like to think that should affect some people's minds and like make them go, okay, maybe she is just kind of crazy. Like that is a little bit too far, even if you hold those views. Because I think we kind of saw similar trends with the gay rights movement, kind of in like the late aughts and early 2010s. But I suspect that most people will say no, and that most of those disaffected moderates will remain pretty much locked into their position, because we have an increasingly polarized society where people don't really seem to be willing to budge on issues like that at all.
Well, I think maybe the most depressing thing about all of this is that some people will change their minds over this. Like, she can donate tens of thousands of pounds to try and remove legal rights we have today. She can campaign to remove healthcare from children. Like, she can support all of these absolutely disgusting people lying about us. She's lied about loads of things about trans people pretty much every single day for 4 years now. And people are like, so what? And then it's like she calls one person a man. And then some people are like, that's it. No, she's finally crossed the line for me. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is like the least transphobic thing she's done in like 4 years.
Yeah.
And suddenly people are acting like if it's up until now. Oh yeah, you campaigning to eradicate trans people is nothing, but you were rude to someone? Like, I just cannot. I'm so sick of this kind of like respectability, politeness, decorum bullshit. Like, it's just so pathetic. And the thing is, I just know that it's not a rational position. People who value politeness over content aren't rational. It's not a rational person thing to do, but it is a common thing to do. Like, it's so not common as in that's not a class comment. I mean, it's a popular position. Like, loads of people hold that position, both left and right wing people, and people aren't interested in politics. Often, if you see two people talking and one of them swears or one of them loses their temper, it doesn't matter what the content of their arguments are. People just take the side of the person who didn't.
Yeah.
And in a way, what's so bad about that? That's bad anyway. Just as a skeptic, that is an infuriating position. And to know that like a huge portion of the people who vote on like my future have that as their way of like deciding where to vote and what issues to hold on and whether to respect people and all this kind of stuff. But the fact is that if they're won over by JK Rowling calling some random trans woman a man, then if they see a trans person being rude back, they'll be won back. And I've already seen people saying this. I've already seen people saying, oh, I I never saw what was wrong with JK Rowling, but then I can't believe that she was so horrible to India Willoughby. But then, since then, I've seen India Willoughby being just as horrible back, so now I don't know what to think again. It's like, good fucking God, like, maybe you could look at what they're saying and where their positions are coming from and what's, like, the morally good position and what's a rational, consistent worldview rather than just trying to see who's been the rudest in a disagreement. What's the disagreement even about? That this isn't just two people just being rude for the sake of it. Like, one of them is some irrational, bigoted dickhead who wants to take away the rights from the other one, and the other person is rude, often, clumsily, but not trying to remove anyone's human rights, and not some kind of like supremacist. So it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I'm absolutely sick of everyone the kind of person who will be affected by this.
Yeah, I do think it's
the worst people,
not insignificant.
Worse than JK Rowling.
Because as you pointed out, I think a lot of people feel that way. I mean, I get comments on this on our show literally all the time, almost every week, that, you know, Katy, your approach is wonderful and they love how you handle things, but I'm crazy, I'm too harsh or whatever, when it's like, if you want to tell me why I'm wrong or why I'm incorrect, that's a totally different thing. And I'm sure there have been plenty of times on air where I have been like wrong on an issue, right? I'm human, I make mistakes. But if you're going to criticize me over my approach and not the actual content of my argument, I just genuinely don't care about those criticisms. That has...
I can hear you.
Why is it playing on my phone randomly? So weird. Don't know why that just started right now in the middle of the show. That's very strange. But anyway, we have callers on the line that we would love to get to. Again, that number is 720-619-2288. It'll be up on the screen. There's also a web link in the description if you are out of the US and want a toll-free number. But are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it. We've got loads of calls.
Exciting. All right. Why don't we just start with number one, since it looks like that's a little potentially spicy right off the bat.
Yeah, prepare to roll your eyes. Let's go.
Let's talk to Minh in California. Pronouns are he, him, or any. Minh, you are live on the line. What's going on?
Hello, Arden. Hello, Katy. Finally, I can talk to you two again. Two of my most favorite hosts on the show.
Thanks, Minh.
So before I say my question, can I ask Arden a favor? Yesterday I worked overtime, so I have extra money, so I would love to donate for your surgery, but I don't have a link to your GoFundMe. So do you mind posting it after my call is done or at the end of the episode?
Yeah, actually, if you look in the chat for the user Calacia, one of our mods, so her name is highlighted in blue, so you can't miss it. They've been posting regularly my GoFundMe link in chat. Thank you so much, Rochelle. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Minh. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. And the reason I'm able to do that, like last time when I talk to you two, is because between us, I kind of feel like I have established my boundary with you two, so it's not like the conflict between us that's too great. I cannot support your cause. But overall, so my question is, because I have seen the tension between the gay, lesbian, cisgender gay, lesbian, and the trans community, and it happened since like years ago, like 6 years, long before the super straight movement become popular. Man, it seems like it get worse. So I wonder, do you think that it's good for two communities to stay together, or we should, maintain the separation so that we don't hurt each other before conservatives do?
Well,
right.
Sorry,
do you want to go first, Arden?
Yeah, the only harm that I can see potentially coming to LGBT people over our union with the T is like the things that would also harm the trans people. So I don't know why we wouldn't be better off just fighting this fight together. I think the people who oppress us for almost the exact same reasons. They're almost always the exact same people. While there definitely are some lesbian radical feminists who are anti-trans, the majority of the anti-trans people are also anti-LGB. And in my experience, interacting with the LGB community, they're overwhelmingly interested in unity and fighting on our behalf for queer rights for all people. So I think whatever division might ostensibly exist between the trans and like sexuality communities is massively overinflated by social media, and in some cases intentionally so by organizations who use terms like LGB in their name, even though the majority of their members might be, in fact, cis straight people. So I'm not really convinced that there is actually a significant divide between the LGB and the T. And I think we are much, much stronger fighting together than apart.
Yeah,
and that goes for all minorities,
agree.
by the way. I think, like, the unity with people of color and queer people is also super close. I mean, like, obviously the oppression that we face is different. But I think we're going to be much more effective working together than working apart on a lot of these issues, because I think they're kind of rooted in similar places. But sorry, Katie, go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Arden. I'm going to go further. I just think it's just totally fake. There isn't this big battle between gay and trans people. If you look at, like, obviously, you said in your personal experience, you haven't experienced that, and also me too. But if we just look at the stats, like, what do our personal experiences mean? Absolutely nothing when we have statistics. Consistently, on every single poll ever, gay people are significantly more likely to support trans rights than straight people are. And particularly gay women. Lesbians are the most likely group to support trans rights out of any group of cis people. And that is obvious to, like, any experience in real life that anyone would have had. But if you only got your information from the internet, you would think it was the complete opposite, and as if straight men were the biggest supporters of trans rights and lesbians were the most likely to oppose them. And, like, that couldn't be further from the truth, statistically, factually. And the reason why people even talk about this is because right-wing anti-LGBT people, as in people who are anti-gay and anti-trans, know that the best way to attack us is to split us apart. And it means they can tell people that these arguments they've been using against gay rights for decades, literally the exact same arguments, word for word, are now okay to use against trans people. And if they can get, like, a handful of gay people to say the same things, then they're just, it like legitimizes these arguments, because previously they'd be saying, oh, it's not bigoted to say that marriage is between a man or a woman. You're just trying to change the definition. It's just how biology should work. And now those arguments were obviously bullshit, but now they're saying the exact same things about trans people. And previously you would say, you're a straight person, you're being homophobic. But now if they can find one idiot gay person who's desperate for attention and validation to say that same thing, you'd be like, hey, you're being transphobic. And they're like, how can I be? How can I be being bigoted because I'm a gay person? And I'm actually fighting against homophobia. And there are people, straight cis people, who don't really care or know about LGBT rights, who are like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to meddle in here. Previously, I thought I supported equality. I thought I supported gay rights. But now there's a gay person who's saying you can only support either trans or gay people. In that case, I will stop doing anything and I will just stand back and let them sort themselves out. And then it ends up being 99% of the LGBT movement on their own against the bigots who are trying to take the rights away from us. And, like, again, like, to add to that even further, it's not just statistically that this is the case, but, like, ideologically, the position that the reason the arguments against trans rights are the same as the ones against gay rights isn't just because the bigots are lazy. It's because the arguments come from the same reasoning. They come from the same place. They come from the idea of, like, patriarchy and how families should be created, and there's only one way to be a man and there's only one way to be a woman, and you have to create only one way to have a family. And this kind of often, but not always, religious position that there's only one way to have a family is where all of this stuff comes from. And that's why it's not we should ally with gay people and we should ally with women and we should ally, with all these other people who are affected by this because it's in our mutual advantage. That's true. Absolutely we should. If I fight for gay rights, then those gay people might fight back for me, and then everyone wins. Sure, that's like a strategic thing to do, but that's not the only reason. Because if I fight back against the people who are trying to attack gay rights, their whole ideology hurts women and gay people and trans people and all kinds of other people. And just by fighting back against that, it frees everyone else altogether. Like, it's the same force. It's almost like having a block of flats and it's on fire, and I'm like, well, I'm only going to put out the fire in my own house. It's like, but that won't do anything, because the problem is the fire. The problem is the whole thing. And by putting out someone else's house, it could save my own house, but also it'll save their house, and it'll save everyone else's houses around at the same time. So separating up LGBT people would be the best thing possible for the anti-LGBT people, because then we're a smaller block. We can fight back less, or in a less organized manner, and organizing does make a difference. So I don't think there's any argument at all to separate it. But then finally, I really have... Sorry, I'm in rant mode today. I've had a bad day. But just the last point is, even if you were like, right, fuck trans people, I'm not saying you're like this, Minh, but even, there are some people who are like, well, trans people are getting loads of flack at the moment and they're holding us all back, so let's just, cut the ladder below us and we'll get away free, fuck trans people, whatever. You couldn't even do that, because the bigots who hate us are just going to come for you with the same arguments, and then you'll just have less people fighting for your side. Like, if they actually manage to wipe trans people out, they're not just going to be like, well, that's that then. I'm going to be a normal person now. No, they're just going to use the exact same reasoning and the exact same laws and the exact same power structures to do the exact same thing to the next group. It's like, why when you're talking to feminists, sure, they'll say things like abortion rights, because abortion rights are important, but they'll also say bodily autonomy. And the reason they'll say bodily autonomy is because that covers abortion rights, but it also covers trans rights, and it also covers disabled people's rights. And if I am out there fighting for abortion, if I'm out there fighting for abortion rights, then great, that helps everyone who might ever need an abortion. But if I'm out there fighting for a bodily autonomy, then I am fighting for the abortion, but also there might be other people who, maybe disabled people who are like, I also care about bodily autonomy, so now I am part of this same fight. So now the whole position is stronger. Long answer, Minh, and I basically said what Arden said, but in a more angry way. I'm the dickhead today. What do you think?
Well, so I think that this is something I probably have to call a few times, because I think there are multiple issues I see, but probably the most contentious thing is something like Arden discussed before with me last time. The issue was like, the tension I see the most is, about the dating and attraction. Now, Katy, if I remember correctly, you say that if, let's say, a cis man do not want to date a trans woman, he should, on his dating profile, he just say that I don't want to date trans women, or I just want to date cis women, right? And so that can save people time, not involving themselves with him.
I mean, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Like, I don't want to date someone who is like obsessed with eggs, like to the point of it becoming overwhelming and ruin our lives. I don't know. I couldn't. My brain's not working. But like, I'm not going to put that on my profile. I'm not going to be like, you must not be someone who only watches Marvel films, because like, if we meet up for a date, I'll find out that that's all they like, and then I'll be like, well, we're not compatible. If you're someone who doesn't want to date a trans woman, and you don't like, you could put on your profile cis people only, and then you won't get any trans people. Problem solved. But also, you don't have to. You could just go on a date, and if you ended up on a date with a trans person, you could just be like, what you could do is you could be a bigoted piece of shit, and you could scream at them, and you could say, get out, tranny freak, or you could just be normal, and you could just be like, thanks for the date, I had a nice evening, but I don't think I want to do this again, or something. Even ghost them, like, whatever, who cares? But
yeah, I don't see a dating issue, Minh. You brought this up last time, and like, I think we've said on the show probably like 500 times that you can not date anyone at any time for any reason at all, even if it's a shitty reason. When trans people are talking about bigotry and dating selection from people, we're talking about like prejudice and deeply held aversions to trans people and the roots of those things. I am by no means, and I don't think any trans person I've ever seen is actually seriously advocating for you to force yourself to date a trans person to overcome bigotry. We're talking about the roots of problems, not trying to suggest that people should be guilted for their dating decisions or that they have to make certain dating decisions. I mean, if you don't feel guilty, I'm gonna think less of you because I think that shows that you're kind of a garbage person. But I'm not trying to say that because I think less of you, therefore, like, you should date a trans person to earn my approval. You shouldn't care if I think less of you. Like, that should not affect your evaluation of yourself at all.
Well, Arden, then so can you explain to me about, you know, like I feel like some prominent like activists, like two of you like the exceptional, because you guys, I don't really see you guys on Twitter like say these things very much, but some people like, you know, Veronica Ivy, I think, or Rachel McKinnon, I think that either her name. So she said that, well, the only, you know, pansexuality is the only moral thing to have. Anything else is immoral. And you know,
you did say that, man. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
This is a good little retro point. I remember this. She did say that, and at the time, me included, the trans community like ripped her apart. It was just plainly stupid position. She said it, and she started writing something about it, and then. I mean, I DM'd her and told her she was an idiot, and loads of other people did, and there was a big fuss about it. And then I think she backed down, or she either backed down or she just totally changed her position and apologized. But that is something that did happen. But the thing is, it's like she is one person who has very strong opinions and says lots of things loudly, like me. But I don't think she's very representative of anything. And if anything, that was such a remarkable event that I remember as soon as you started saying it, I remember the exact moment. I remember the DM I wrote to her about it. Yeah, you know, if this was 10% of trans people think this, it'd be like, well, okay, that's not everyone, but that's enough that it's worth talking about. But it's more like, do you remember that one screenshot that always gets posted at you from 2017 of that guy who was called Cole, who said that if you don't date trans men and you're transphobic? It's like, yeah, I know that one incident because people have posted it to me 5,000 times because it's so remarkably rare in comparison that people know it. Anyway, sorry, Minh, to cut you off.
Yeah. Yes, okay, Katy. Because I love to hear Arden, because like I know that you're very eloquent in this. So you probably remember what Riley Dennis said like 6 years ago, right? And two things that she said that pretty much like, I had to admit that it ticked me off more than straight people say it, because one of the reasons she said is, you don't want, so especially she target, I think, lesbian and cis men, that you don't want, you know, they trans women because, you know, because you are conditioned by the cis sexist prejudice on you, so you should unlearn that so you don't have that prejudice anymore. And I feel like that's really sort of insulting to people like myself, because I grew up in a culture that is extremely homophobic. And even in my own family, I have an uncle who said to me, you don't want to date women, is it because you have some infertile problem? You want me to help you treat it so you can like having sex with women? And I cannot say anything to him because I don't want to score drama in the family. And when I live in Vietnam, people around me keep saying, something is wrong if you don't want, you not want to date women, you're single as a man for too long. Something problematic with you, that, you know, wanting sex with a woman is the normal thing for guys. So when I live in the States, I finally have freedom to be what I want and to love whom I feel naturally to love. And then, you know, activists like Riley Dennis or another guy will come in and say that something problematic with me because I don't desire the set of genital that people have. That's really, I think that's really an insult to people who go through that.
I don't know if
process.
I think it's an insult, man. I no, listen, the fact that your uncle
says
ahead, and does things like that, that's fucked up. And I'm really proud of you for being able to like recognize that that's fucked up and to get yourself to a place where you can be authentically yourself. And that's good. But I don't think there's anything wrong with people saying, hey, the origins of your preferences may be rooted in transphobic prejudice and that it's worth exploring to that. That's not saying that your conclusion has to be, therefore, you're going to want to bang a trans man and you should be happy about it. That's not the implication of saying your preferences may be rooted in transphobia and it's worth exploring. People are just trying to point out that a lot of the preferences that people claim to have as a sort of intrinsic thing are more likely, in fact, rooted in this prejudice, and that if they explored it, they might find that their true preferences would sort of like expand, and they would stop being hateful towards themselves and those other people. But it's not to say that you have to now go bang a trans man and like it. Like you live your life, man. I want you to do whatever makes you happy and to date whoever makes you feel the most seen and the most fulfilled. I'm not interested in policing who individuals are dating. But I will regularly talk about how, like, no, I think it's stupid to say that pansexuality is the only valid sexuality. But I will say that I think the barriers that we've created around, like, people being straight or gay or pansexual are largely artificial. And that I think people's preferences and their predilections are probably pretty natural. The fact that you like cis men is probably pretty ingrained in who you are. But, like, the barriers between the activities you do with people are largely socially constructed, I think. Because when we look at our closest related ape relatives, I'm telling you, there's no social boundaries on who they fuck most of the time. They are going, not to a terrible pun, but they're going bananas over like kind of any and whatever genitals they can play with. Like, bonobos are crazy. Very horny animals. So like I think it's a mistake to take the socially constructed barriers that we've had and to assume that those are intrinsic and biological and natural. And it's probably good for us to investigate the veracity of those claims. But by no means am I interested in ever, and I don't think even a lot of the activists that you're pointing to would now say, now granted, I haven't thought about Riley Dennis in years because I don't think she posts stuff anymore, but I would even wager that probably a lot of those people would say that that is a misconception of what the point they were trying to make was. Maybe it is the best reading of their point, but it's probably not what they meant to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wish like more people talk like more like reasonable like you, because people like Riley, like I think really toxic in the sense that another thing that she claimed is that like, well, I understand you don't want to have sex with a penis because you were trauma by being assaulted by someone who had penis, and I swear if I understand it, I probably throw stuff at her because that's really seriously like really accusation that's extremely like dehumanizing to people who go through that. And in my case, I was not assaulted by anybody with a vagina. In fact, I used to be touched in an inappropriate manner by a guy, and that I would not say that that's for the reason I like men, right? Or because of that I should stay away from penis. I mean, but the way that people like her make that sort of claim extremely damaging to reputation for trans people, also cause further division between two people.
If I can say something,
go ahead,
I hope you don't take this offensive to offense, but it's going to be a little bit critical of you. You tend to call in with problems and beliefs that seem to be heavily rooted in things that I only ever see like deep in gender critical circles of Twitter or deep in gender critical sort of talking points. And it sounds to me like you are kind of, for whatever reason, primed and ready to the second you hear a sort of, this trans person said this thing that's objectionable, and it reflects poorly on you, to jump on that and to generalize from it. And I, kind of similar to the other thing we're talking about, I think it might be interesting to see if you were to investigate why that is, where you're getting your information from, and the kind of voices that you're listening to, because I may be totally off base here. I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know your practices, but I really only ever see takes like that from deep within the gender even people who are like in my life who are not accepting of trans people, but are like not online at all. They don't come anywhere close to these sort of ideas. They just kind of like, I don't really get it. I don't believe in it. And that's like the extent of their thoughts on the topic. So it sounds to me like you're maybe indulging in some propagandistic content. But sorry, Katie, it looks like
both of the things you've brought up are really retro. Like Riley J. Dennis is like 2016 and Veronica Ivy is like 2020 or 2019. So yes, it's interesting. What I was... So just to kind of add what Arden was just saying, it was actually something I was thinking is, even if we were to just say those two trans people you mentioned were evil, if we just took the most extreme view, I don't think that reflects badly on me or the trans community, because if I found a gay person who was evil, I don't think it would reflect on you. And if I found a man who was evil, I don't think that reflects on you. I know that trans people are being hyper criticized at the moment for everything, but constantly, I am told that, there'll be a trans person who murdered someone, and suddenly everyone is posting under all my replies being like, apologize for this, explain for this, why did people like you do this? This is the kind of thing you do. And it's like, isn't that the most basic form of bigotry to see someone and just blame them for something bad someone else has done? I mean, there are common positions that trans people often tend to hold, and if you wanted to call in and be like, why are all trans people, I don't know, fans of that shark from IKEA, I'd be like, well, I can't just say just because it's like 90% of all trans people, but when it genuinely is just one wacky view. If you want to call in and say, I heard this wacky view, what do you think? Absolutely. I like talking about wacky views. But if you want to say it reflects badly on the trans community or badly on me and Arden, I just feel like that's the difference between those two things.
Sorry to butt in again. I do want you to talk in. But for example, the current Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, who's running for Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, is a black man, right? He is an awful person. He says anti-trans things. He's saying that only men should lead. Women should not be leaders at all.
2024.
He's used racist comments. How weird would it be if I called up a show with black people doing a call-in show and was like, hey, I think Mark Robinson makes you guys look bad. That would be kind of weird, right? To take an extreme position, even though it's a high-profile extreme position, and pretend that somehow reflects on the group. That's what it feels like to me when you're bringing these things to us and saying this somehow reflects on the trans community. It's just like Katie said, if you want to talk about an individual, I heard this crazy thing, what do you guys think about it? I'll take that call any day. I think that totally makes sense. Happy to help you address that. But yeah, it's the notion that this somehow is indicative of a broader position or that it's reflective of trans people. I don't see how that comes from anywhere other than a source of prejudice. And we all have prejudice. I'm not telling you you're a bad person. You may in fact be a bad person. I don't know you. But I'm not saying that this alone makes you a bad person. I'm just saying that that's where it sounds like it's coming from.
Well, no, Adam, actually, your evaluation about me is not totally off base, because I do hold certain gender critical views, even though, I'm cool with helping trans people transition and live their lives, because that certain position I'm not sure I can agree with, and this is just one of them. And I don't hold this against trans people, all of them, but so when I bring up this issue, I try to be very careful with my wording, because in my perception, the activists are the one I don't feel like I can be in line with. But ordinary trans people who want to live their life, go through that day, that's fine. No, I maybe you two are actors, but like I don't see you on the same level. Like people make videos on or tell
but
people
Minh,
that
this is exactly the problem. Saying that like, oh, the activists are crazy, but you guys are normal. It's like if I were to say to like the Black College show, like, you guys are some of the good ones, but the rest of you people are crazy. Like it's still. It's interesting to me that you can acknowledge that you're engaging in prejudice, but then still kind of defend it like it's rational when like prejudice is definitionally an irrational aversion to, a group of people or even hatred or fear of. So I think it's curious that you can acknowledge that maybe you are prejudiced, but still then go on to defend it. Like, I'd be curious for you to like. I think we're probably gonna have to move on, take another call because we've been on this one a while. But
yeah.
I think I'd like you to like maybe digest that for a week or two, and then call back in and kind of like maybe see how that was reflected. Because that's just very interesting to me that you could, because you seem to be an honest interlocutor. When I bring you points or arguments, you seem to like be like, okay, yeah, that's not what I thought, or like digest it. So it's strange to me when people repeatedly call in, acknowledge areas of prejudice, but then continue to hold those beliefs, even though they might acknowledge them in the conversation. Maybe you'll have insight to give us on that next time you call in. But yeah, I'll give you a chance to give a last word, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you very much, Alan. Yeah, so that's so I'll because this like I said, I think a few more things I would love to resolve with two of you. So I'll wait until you're on the show again, and I'll call in. Yeah, but
Thanks,
so
man.
I'm gonna so hopefully I will receive the link for your donation, so I can make it. So in case I forget.
Yeah, sweet. Keep on that chat for Calacia. Their blue name mod. You'll see the link. So thanks so much, Minh. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Alrighty, we're just gonna keep rolling here. We've got other callers on the line I'd like to get to. The next one also might be potentially spicy. We'll find out. We've got Daniel in New York. Pronouns are he, him. Daniel, you are live on the line. What's going on?
Hello, ladies. Hello. Good afternoon. How are you both?
Doing all right. What do you got for
us
today?
Please let me know if I'm deep-throating my mic, because I'm not listening back. So let me know if I'm peaking or anything.
No, you're good right now.
You're fine at the moment.
Thanks.
Can't hear any deep throat going on.
I think Minh should know that in the 7th grade I was punched by a Vietnamese boy, and so I really don't think I can support Vietnamese immigrants in the United States or anything along those lines.
Similar argument. I get your point.
That'll be an interesting contextless throwback when I make this into a clip. Anyway, go on.
Right. No, all in good fun. Minh's a good sport. And Katy, I'm sorry you had a bad day. I think I can make it better. I want you to know that I've already established the Church of Katyanity. And
okay.
In the temple, we have a ritual where we all dress up as wasps and we inject caterpillars with a syringe with a virus. And
sounds
men
good.
are forced.
I'm in.
We're very serious, and men once a month are forced to sit for 7 days outside the village and eat mayonnaise off a spoon for 7 straight days, just because they're men.
All right.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Fascinating
that's fine.
religion.
So what's your question this week?
Okay. Enough kidding around. So I totally have gotten on board with the whole. I was kind of out of the loop until all of the transgender debate came into the news, and I needed to catch up because I'm a very progressive liberal, far left, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Jim Sterling, the YouTuber who. Yeah, so he said something that hit me right to the core. He said when some of these debates were going on, the stuff with JK Rowling, he said, if you're not with us, you're against us. And we hold the same political views, so I realized I needed to get on board and be an ally. And so I did a lot of research, and that's how I found your show, and that's how I know to not be worthy enough to worship at both of your ladies' feet. So, but I have a family member who I've been estranged from for more than 20 years, my brother, and he has my niece, who's just finished college. I learned that identifies as they, them, and I can rationalize all other gender identities pretty easily in my head, and even when I couldn't, like years ago in New York, you used to have to live for a man. Let's say you wanted to transition from a man to a woman in New York. You used to have to live as a woman before you could begin, for a year, before you could begin any medical transition whatsoever. It was a horrible thing. So you'd literally see from time to time a woman in a beard, perhaps, in a dress, and it was very cognitive dissonance was kind of how it came across. But then I very easily could say, how brave does that person have to be to do that, to be that committed, to go through that kind of social stigma, to make that transition. So I learned very quickly to have just a tremendous amount of respect for that. But the thing I can't wrap my head around is the kind of they, them identity, like a non-binary. I don't know what that, my brain can't latch on to anything there. I don't know what that means to be two people, to be neither this or that, or both this and that. I can't conceptually get my head around it, and I needed help.
Sorry. Oh, do you want me to go first, Arden?
Roll.
I don't know.
Go with it. Go. Roll.
Okay. So you mentioned like two different things there. Like you said, I don't know what it's like to be two different people, and then I don't know what it's like to be not one thing or the other. And just like to be clear, generally, when someone says they're non-binary, or when they say, "Can you call me they, them?" they aren't trying to say, "Can you refer to me as multiple people?" or "I am like a man and a woman and also 6 dogs in a trench coat," or something. Like they're still just one person. They're just another person like me or you, and they, them. We do use that grammatically for plurals. If there's like 5 people, you say, "What are they doing over there?" But we also do have a singular form of they, and you might not have noticed it because it's not really something people think about. But if you said, like, to your friend, "How's it going?" and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, my brother's just brought round their kid," and you'd be like, "Oh, how old are they?" And that's just like a normal sentence, and they'd be like, "Oh, they're 6 years old," or something, or "She's 6 years old," or "He's 6 years old." It just is a way of talking about someone in the third person when you don't know what their gender is. That's already a construct we've had for, in fact, a very long time. There's a singular. Shakespeare uses they in a singular form in lots of his work. It's actually from before Shakespeare. Sorry, this random bit of fact, but I think the earliest usage we have in writing is from Canterbury Tales, which is actually from before modern English existed, and it's in a form of English.
I studied a course specifically on the Canterbury Tales with Chaucer.
Did you?
It was horrible, but I learned Middle English.
It's not really English.
For that course.
It's not really English. It's Middle English, so like totally different language, but it has we have roots in that, and they had different pronouns to us, and but they did have they and them, and they also had thou and thou and thy, but they also had you, and in fact singular they evolved into English before singular you did. Anyway, that's just like a etymology grammar nerd thing. But going back to like your question, when someone says, "Can you call me they, them?" or "I am non-binary," what they're trying to say is, whatever your concept is, whatever society's concept is of a man and a woman, I don't think I fit into those boxes entirely or at all. And it's complicated because everyone's going to have their own view of it, but that's generally what we're communicating. And the reason they would say they, them is because to those people, they think, well, you know, when I transitioned, people used to call me he, him, and then I was just like, I don't want that anymore. Can you refer to me as she, like all the other women in your life? That's quite an easy step for me comparatively to these people who are trying to say, well, I don't think I'm a man anymore, and I don't think that really applies to me, but also I don't think I'm a woman either. So I don't really want to be he, but also I don't really want to be she. So what is the other option? And it just happens in English, we already have this genderless third person pronoun, which is they and them. So that's generally why people have picked it. You will find other non-binary people who are trying to create new pronouns, and they're like, can you call me, you know, other things? And that's fine, because sorry, I couldn't think of an example. God, my brain is off today. But the point there is they're just trying to say, he doesn't work for me, she doesn't work for me, here's another alternative. And that's just kind of the grammar side, but like a non-binary person, often one way I try and get people's sort of head around this is there's loads of different ways for trans people to exist and loads of different ways for non-binary people to exist. So this is just like a generalization, but to try and get your mind into like the head state of it, if you imagine like you have a load of bits to your body, which are stuff everyone has, but you have a load of bits to your body which are like strongly like male sexed, as in most of the men in your life have those bits and most of the women in your life don't have those bits. And there are loads of things on your body like that, like from your facial hair to your voice, to like which genitals you have and all of those kinds of stuff. And when you think of like a sort of the traditional view of what a trans person is, it's someone who has one set of all of those things and then they switch over using medical process to all of the other sorts of those things. But there's loads of different things. There's your, as I was just saying, like your facial hair, your genitals, your gonads, like there's a whole bunch of different stuff. And who says that they all have to be either male or either female? Who says they have to be at one end or the other? Maybe like the reason I medically transitioned is because the body I had before, those sexed parts of me gave me some form of distress, and now they don't. And that's like, it's called gender dysphoria, and it's like the force that caused me to transition. And there are just some other people who have that same force, but just not on all of the same bits. Maybe they're really distressed about their voice, but they don't care about their genitals. Maybe they're really distressed about their genitals, but they don't care about their facial hair, etc., etc. So there were just like multiple different combinations. In fact, like thousands of different ones, because there are so many different sex characteristics, and the sex characteristics themselves aren't necessarily binaries. And then it just kind of like, well, where do you draw the line between male and female? Where do you draw the line between man and woman? And maybe it's best to just say there isn't really this line, and it's kind of like a scale. It's like a multi-dimensional, I don't want to say the word spectrum because I don't like that word, but that's a way to describe it to people. And if that's the case, like if you don't really feel like you fit into one or the other, why does people even need to know? Like when I meet someone, I don't really need to know what genitals they had as a baby. I don't really need to know like anything about their about their sex characteristics at all. All I really need to know is what their name is and what they're interested in, so we can have a conversation. So I don't know if that like really addresses it, and I know Arden hasn't had anything to say yet.
I think I was going to say a lot of the same points. I also was going to mention that, like I've said before on this show, I've explained to people one of the ways that I knew that I was trans as a young person was that I had a lot of dysphoria from being in like categorized as a boy or put into like masculine situations. Like I have a vivid memory of my dad taking me ice fishing with one of his friends at some ice shack in the middle of a lake and miserable. Like the worst experiences of my life are some of those like highly masculinized experiences, or where there was an attempt to socialize me in a masculine way. And for me, I had a roommate a couple years back who was non-binary, and well, not every non-binary person is necessarily going to experience this the exact same way. It was really easy for me to understand their experience because the way they articulated this individual to me was, yeah, I had that same experience when I was growing up trying to be socialized as a girl. But then as I started to transition, people started doing that to me as a man, and I was like, whoa, that feels wrong too. I just kind of want to be me. And if that means I'm, not either or both or whatever, I don't really care. I just know that being put in each of those camps has made me feel bad and wrong. And considering it's pretty easy for people to understand the dysphoria that binary trans people undergo, I don't really understand why that would be difficult for people with regard to non-binary people. So yeah, I think it's, I don't know. That was kind of the only addendum that I had to the things Katy said. What do you think, Daniel, to all that?
Well, regarding the pronouns, I couldn't care less. That's language, and we make that up and mold it as we see fit. That's completely fine. I don't care at all about that. But and people say that language is the thing that sets us apart from other animals and led to our biggest advancements. I disagree with that. I think if I were in your house and I grunted at a glass and grunted at the faucet, you could understand that I wanted a glass of water. But it's our ability to keep learning constantly that sets us really apart, whereas other species, I think, kind of plateau. And so it's that level of empathy that I want to try and really get a hold of and try and understand maybe more about what their experience is, what they're feeling. And it's very easy for me to understand an identity that's coming from a female perspective that may have the dysphoria that both of you have experienced. But I can't, the hard part has been trying to understand the dysphoria where you don't feel like any gender. That's been the stumbling block for me, and I guess it's helped a bit. Is that a good way to say it, is that I don't feel like I have any gender? Would that be a good mindset to put myself in if I were trying to be empathetic?
Some people might say that. I guess the way I met, because something I've said on this show before is, people call in and they say, I don't get non-binary people, and like, neither do I, but also I don't get men. I don't get trans men. I don't get cis men. Like, why would you want to be a man? Like, absolute,
we don't.
like, noob maneuver.
Secretly, we really don't. It sucks.
Yeah. But like, the thing is, I don't really need to get it, because all I really need to do is just accept that they have a certain, they've said, this is my name, this is how I'd like you to call me. Cool, right, great, we're friends now. And also I need to know that they have certain experiences with transphobia that I don't want them to have to face. So like, if you wanna have empathy and understand what's going on, the best thing to do is talk to them. We do sometimes have non-binary people on this show, so call in and ask them how they're feeling. Talk to your friend. Talk to someone who you've met, and just be like, what is it like for you? But in general, like the kind of general empathy, the only empathy you really need is like, this is a person who is literally just trying to live their life, and society is putting some bullshit rules. You must be a man or you must be a woman that they don't feel like applies to them, even if that seems confusing to you. And then on top of that, there are people who are like going out of their way to ruin this person's life because they're offended by it. And so you can just be like, well, I don't necessarily fully get what it's like to be whatever you are, but also I think you should be allowed to do it. It's not hurting me. It's not like some untrue, irrational statement. It's just like a position that you're existing in. So I'm on your side. I don't know. That's how I view it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Does that automatically fall under the trans umbrella? Would you say that
well,
identity?
Complicated question.
Yeah,
generally, yeah, that people have to argue about this kind of thing. The thing is, with all of these terms, and with all definitions, really, they don't have like strict edges. They don't have this definitely is a thing and this definitely isn't a thing. It's not objective. It's all subjective. And generally, the reason I would say non-binary people are trans people is because they experience the same kind of stuff as us, and most of the ones I meet seem to describe themselves as that, and most of the transphobes seem to make all the same arguments against them, and hate them even more than they hate us.
I think,
but
sorry, I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Yeah, like, no, it's okay. But there will be some people who'll be like, well, not technically, or I don't feel like that applies to me, and I'm not going to tell them otherwise. I don't really care. All I really care about is making the world a better place and fighting against the bigotry. So
I think most of the cases where I've seen non-binary people say, I am not trans, it's usually followed up by an addendum of, this individual does not interested in seeking out social or medical transition, and so they feel that by adopting the trans label, they might be sort of like engaging in some sort of stolen valor or something. And while I think that's, I understand where that's coming from, and usually when people have that position, it makes me feel like they get the trans experience more, which kind of in turn makes me more confident in their like transness, that they're aware of the bigotry that trans people experience and the invalidation of your identity. Yeah, for me, if you aren't identifying as the sex you were assigned at birth, the gender that kind of correlates with that, you're trans in my book. But like Katy said, if somebody says, oh, well, I'm not trans, I'm not going to be like, yes, you are, or like have a fight with them about it. You know, I think I'm just going to kind of keep going on with my model of transness and advocating for their rights as well as my own. And we'll get to a place, hopefully, where it doesn't really matter what you call yourself or what box you put yourself in, because nobody is discriminated against on that basis, and everyone has equal access to housing and jobs and opportunities, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't want to say something that might be out of turn and might be offensive, so I didn't know if that's kind of the generally accepted nomenclature for the non-binary experience. So that's really, really helpful.
Cool. Right.
I did want to... No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, we're
just saying great. Glad to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very helpful. And I wanted to follow up very quickly something unrelated. A couple weeks ago, you had a caller call in, Fiona, and she calls in pretty regularly. And if she doesn't call in, she listens to the show afterwards. And I think she's about, like she said, she's like 6 months into her transition. And she called in a couple weeks ago and felt kind of, and my heart just broke in two, felt kind of like a woman without a country, because she didn't have the same experiences as her new lady friends did when she was growing up, but she also was no longer part of the male experience that she was brought up into when she was younger, and kind of felt like I said, like a ship without a port. And I'm sure if she's felt that way, then there's many more who did or do. And I just wanted to shout out to her and say that her experience is as valid as a woman as any of the ladies who are cisgender that she's going out to lunch with at work or anywhere she's experiencing other women's experience. Her experience is just much more unique, but it's 100% as valid, and that she might be able to offer some perspective to her cisgender friends as her female experience that they might have never considered or never thought of, that they might find really fascinating or interesting. And she should never feel shy or like a second-class citizen to offering up her female experience from her own perspective as anyone she's with. And I just wanted to say that to her directly, and to anyone who's felt that same sense of homelessness in the kind of transition period where you don't know where you belong.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Daniel. That was very kind of you. I appreciate the conversation. And if you are ruminating on this, you have more thoughts, please do call back in. Well, it'll be Katy and I again next week. So,
Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel.
Well, you guys rule. And Arden, I didn't rule you out of the Church of Katyanity. I'm thinking of some kind of martyrdom for you, maybe. Nothing torture related. Maybe suffered through an extreme number of orgasms with your partner to forgive us for all our lustful wantonness. Something along those lines, but
incredible.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Daniel. Bye.
Thank you, ladies. You rock. Bye-bye.
Alrighty then. We're just going to keep trucking. I am going to close the lines because we have 4 other callers and I would like to get to them all, but I know Katy is 6 hours ahead of me on the time scale, so I don't want to take up her entire evening. So I'm going to close the lines now. That means no new callers, but if you're currently waiting on the line, we are intending to get to you. So don't drop, just hang on. We will get to you in due time. We're going to take y'all in the order that you come in or your spiciness level, whichever is more pertinent. But
currently that is the spiciest level, I think.
Yes, I think so as well. So we're going to take David in Italy. I think this is a return caller. David, he, him, you are on the line. What's going on?
Yeah, hi. I am the guy, but was the other time on the call. We had a very pretty conversation. I want to clarify some things, but I don't have an anti-trans position, but more of an like I'm against a non-prescriptive self-ID position. Like there is something that also Katy said towards the end of our conversation, but I think it can be something like a meeting point, but I want to address later. But I will go to the question. So if I have to believe that someone is a woman just because they identify themselves as such, then why wouldn't someone that identify as something else or claim to experience a feeling of a thing, like for example, a race, an animal, or any other social construct, actually be that thing in virtue of self-ID?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say is, like, you don't have to believe it.
Yes, that was also my first.
I mean, this, in any sense, like, at least in the UK, there is no law on what you can believe, and there's no like supernatural thing forcing you to believe it. And it's not even like, it's not an attempt to make you believe it. If you, if I say the best way to find out whether someone is gay or straight is to ask them, that's true. But that doesn't mean if we ask every single person on Earth that they will factually tell you the answer. That some of them will lie. Some of them are lie because they want to. Some of them are lie because they have to for their safety. Some of them will be delusional. Some of them won't know what the question means and will answer the wrong thing. Like, that's true for any question. It's true for any like human interaction. But still, if we asked every single person, if we thought up all different ways to measure someone's sexuality, and we did all of them on all the people on Earth, the one I think that would come up with the most accurate representation of the actual truth, which we could never truly know, would be asking them. And we could do things like see if they have a good haircut or something else. Like, that might have some weak correlation to it, but isn't actually going to give you correct information. And it's the same for this. If someone said, like, the best way to find out whether someone's a man or a woman is to ask them, but that doesn't mean that someone's not going to lie or that someone's not going to be delusional or something. It's just better than any of the other ways.
Yeah, but would you apply the same criteria to if someone claimed to feel like a race, an animal, or any other thing, or any other castle? You would apply the same criteria to any of such things?
Well,
I don't think the best way to find out whether someone is a cat or not is to ask them.
Yeah, you're doing an equivocation.
Not really.
David, you're engaging in an equivocation.
But when it comes to race...
David, wait. Hold on. Yes. It's an equivocation fallacy, because like when somebody says, I identify as a certain race is a heritable, externally observable trait. There's no like for the most part, there are people who are obviously like biracial or something who might be more inclined to like identify socially in certain contexts, but by and large, when we're talking about race, this is a heritable trait, something we can actually observe, whereas gender identity is not that.
Why scientists argue that race is a social construct. For example, you bring up biracial people.
Race is a social construct, yes, but race is constructed around the observable color of someone's skin, that which is not socially constructed, right? So like in America, it used to be considered the right way to refer to people who are black is to call them African American. That's kind of faded out of the like typically accepted lexicon, but it was removed because that is an example of race being a social construct. But just because someone is black and living in America doesn't mean that their heritage necessarily leads back to Africa. I mean, if you go back all the way, all humans go back to Africa, but that's like besides the point. When we're talking about race as a social construct, that is not to say that it is purely fictional or purely made up or only existing in the social space. Just like when we say that somebody's gender identity is a social construct, that doesn't mean it is fictional, that it is just fabricated out of nothing.
Okay, and we agree, but there are some things like some part of race, because like Italian race is not an actual thing, but there are some construction of race that are more based on culture rather than indeed this aspect like skin color. You like Jews, like the Jews are very different in terms of genetics, but they are considered their own race. So, but this is beside the point, because my question is, if, for example, you said that there are biracial people, like mixed race people. Some two mixed race people may look the same, but like Paris Jackson may say that she identifies as a black woman, despite she look white. And then there is another biracial people that look the same as this person, but say that she feel more like a white woman because there is a feeling that they experience that make them identify themselves as such. So based on this thing, would you?
Yeah, but what feeling? When you say feel, like I think we're using feeling really loosely here. Like we can say, oh, this person feels like a woman. This person feels like a cat. This person feels like a white person. Whatever. Like these, the motivation behind these, or what these feelings even are very different. Like if you ask, put someone with, if you ask someone with a black parent and a white parent, who what race they think best applies to them, they could say, oh, well, I feel like the race, like, I feel like this race. And you'd be like, oh, so it's just a feeling. We're like, no, this person is probably saying they've grown up maybe with brothers and sisters who also have different mixes of, the genetics of their parents, and who may have experienced the same or different amounts of racism and prejudice in their lives. They might culturally, maybe their parents are split up and they have absolutely nothing to do with one of their parents. So culturally, they don't feel like they ever had the upbringing, which is typically associated with all of their peers who would say they were the same race or who wouldn't. So there's loads of like aspects with race like that, which will factor into the decision. Whereas if we're talking about something like species, if someone says like, I feel like a frog, but like, what the hell does that mean? It's literally a meaningless statement, because you like, what do we say makes something a frog or not? Well, we just say it looks like the other things that we call frogs. Not all frogs can reproduce with each other, but most frogs of the same species can reproduce with each other, because that's loosely what we define as a species. And then they're related with each other enough that they look similar enough that we're going to say, well, this is a new type of frog rather than this is a different type of amphibian. Like, it's sort of a game in categorization when it comes to species, and it's something you can only do on a population level, and it's very difficult to do with specific individuals. But then when it comes to like sex and gender, there's a whole new set of contexts that we're talking in around this, because obviously we're discussing things like sex characteristics, but we're again also talking about social influence, and like things in society, that how people view what a man and a woman is on an individual level and on like a social level. So I get that people are kind of like, oh, well, if you say you're a woman, then why can't you say you're a dog? It's like, well, they're not the same thing, are they? I mean, it's like saying, well, just because you can say you're straight, does that mean that I can say I'm cheese on toast? It's like, well, no, because they're not the same thing,
you are can they? relate. you can relate to the fact, for example, yeah, I have argued the same thing, but from the perspective of a cis man, we don't know if the experience of being a woman, the feeling of being a woman, is really intrinsically different. And maybe it is for the same reason you listed before, for race, for gender. There may be indeed for some people the fact that they grow up in a certain way, etc. It can be a very similar scenario, but influence the preferences and stuff like that. So from my perspective, I don't know how the feeling of a woman is really different from the feeling of a man beyond. So
neither do I.
We go back to a fundamental question. If they feel in a certain way, and we don't know if that feeling is true or not, then why we cannot accept the claim about the race?
But no, you're doing the feelings thing again, because there's multiple meanings for what the feeling is. When someone says, "Well, what does it feel like to be a woman?" Like, or what things do all women share that is a feeling that all men don't feel, or something like. I don't know. I couldn't possibly know that because I don't know how anyone else feels. But if we like, feeling has, it's a really loose word here. If someone's like, I really struggled growing up with a boy and I always just felt like I should have been a girl. Like, they're not saying, when I was growing up, I shared the feeling that all girls feel and no boys feel. That is a strict claim that I am making about the existence of humans on Earth. They're saying that I was struggling growing up being a boy and I wished I was a girl. Like, that's just a way of describing it. It's just like a loose, airy, fluffy way of describing. It's like when people like, I feel like I was born in the wrong body. I don't believe in souls. I think that people are just literally their material bits. Your brain is just a bit of you. It's a physical part of you. And if I cut it out, you will change who you are. And if someone says, can you be born in the wrong body? Well, literally no, because souls don't exist. What you are just your body. Your brain is your body. That is it. It's impossible. However, if someone says to me, does being trans feel like you're born in the wrong body? Like, it feels like it in the sense that, like, I know what they're saying. When someone says, like, oh, it feels like, sometimes people message me and they're just coming out to themselves and they're like, Katy, I've just always felt trapped in the wrong body. And I'm like, well, I know what they're saying. I know what feeling they're trying to communicate. But feelings are difficult. It's not like some kind of claim about some shared feeling across men and women. When they say, I feel like I'm a woman, or I feel like I was trapped in a wrong body, or some other kind of claim like that, what they are doing is communicating something in a way that we know from looking at how trans people have generally communicated that often means, maybe you should go in and look at all of your other experiences and talk with a doctor and talk with some experts, and maybe you've got gender dysphoria. And if you have, we know that transition will benefit you generally 99% of the time. So when they're saying these feeling claims, it's not like saying, I feel like, I have this feeling that other people have, so I must be a woman.
Yeah. Then we agree on a point, because this tied up also to another point you made, that a trans woman can be a woman even if he doesn't believe to be a woman. So if that is true, technically, the moment you said that, it stopped to be a self-ID position, because for example, if I say that I self-identify as a white Italian, but then I say I don't see myself or believe to be white Italian, that would make no sense. It would be a contradiction, because this is how I see self-ID. I think that self-ID must include the belief of oneself. So, like I said, if you say that a trans woman can be a woman even if she doesn't believe to be a woman, then
hang on, David. I'm not quite sure.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what you mean about the position that you're saying that I had. So, like, to clarify what my position on self-ID is, it's that when someone presents you with a bunch of boxes, it's like, which one of these do you fit best? like society has said in the UK, for example, in law, we only have 2 boxes. You can only be M or F. And you can actually be multiple different ones of those in different contexts. But generally, when they're asking you to fill in like your passport, you can only be an M or F. But if I go to somewhere else, like a private doctor or something, they might have multiple boxes I can fill in there. And in each of these times, they're just saying, well, which of these things fit you best? That's what self-ID is to me. It's just, here are the selected ways of communicating what best describes you. Which of them are you picking? The like belief claim, when I usually talk about like you can be trans without believing it, I don't mean you can be a woman without having a belief that women exist or something. What I'm saying is that even without being taught what a trans person is, even with like no knowledge at all, even if you were born and raised by wolves, you could still be born with the condition gender dysphoria, just like you could still be born either attracted to men or attracted to women. And sure, society has an influence on those things, but it's still a predisposition that we know all humans have. So the self-ID and the belief thing, maybe we could like come up with this hypothetical where like someone is born with a penis, and so if a doctor was to see them, they would say this is a boy, but they were born and raised by wolves, and they also happen to have gender dysphoria. And then maybe when they first met society, they were faced with 2 groups, and the 2 groups, there was a bunch of men and there was a bunch of women, and maybe they would walk over and say, I think I fit in with the group of women best. And then everyone would be like, why do you think that? And they'd be like, oh, it's just a feeling. I don't know. The point is that all that the self-ID part here is they are given some options, and they're like, which of these options fits you? And then the belief part is like, then someone would say, well, do you believe you're a woman? And they might be like, well, what the hell does that mean? I don't even know what a woman is. I was raised by wolves. I don't know why I can speak English. Like, I think we're blurring things together.
No, I think we may more agree than disagree, because when I talk about a self-ID position, because what you said is more of like something that is used to know, indeed, in a more prescriptive way, if someone is a woman, if someone is a man, etc. When I state a self-ID position, a very true self-ID position is a philosophical position where someone believes...
I don't care about that. In this kind of like ontological claim of what a true woman is, like, that's just supernatural.
I also
whatever.
just fully reject
Rubbish.
the notion, David, that you're putting forward that that's the true self-ID position, and what we have is like some other self-ID position. I think you have a like the self-ID position that is usually pushed by gender criticals to... Oh, isn't that like, it's called like the Mott and Bailey or something? I know people hate it when you name specific fallacies, but it's basically a straw man where you're saying you're putting forth the definition of self-ID that is not the actual position that people are advocating for, because it's easier to deconstruct and knock down than the actual position that we hold, which is what Katy just said.
Yeah, when I say self-ID, all I want is when someone says, like, Katy, what's your name? What should I call you? They just, call me my name and say she, like I politely ask. And also, more importantly, because most people seem to do it anyway, maybe more importantly for me, maybe not more importantly for other people, but also that I don't have to describe my genitals on a document and send off to a room full of men that I'll never meet to see whether I should be allowed to get married or not. Like, that's what I'm doing when I'm talking about self-ID. Why should when I can update my passport with self-ID, as in I can just send off a bunch of letters to the passport office and they give me a new one, why can't I do that with my other documents? When I get a new driving license, I literally just tick some boxes and send in a photo and they give me a new one. That is self-ID because I'm the one who's doing it. There's no legal status that I need to convince people with using forms and bullshit and doctors and stuff. That's all I care about. Whether someone's true, whether there's some true supernatural, magical, universal definition of woman or not, and whether I meet that, doesn't affect my life at all.
Yeah.
So I'm uninterested.
Okay, we agree. So basically, it wasn't it wasn't to create a misleading representation of your position. Just because usually, very often, I wanted to know better your position, because very often it is argued that indeed trans women are women because they identify as such. I wanted to understand more properly if indeed you have only a prescriptive position or something else. I think, from my perspective, it is believable that someone is a trans woman because they have a feeling, or they have associated something to the concept of woman, and then they post hoc they arrive to that self-identification, because obviously there are many reasons why someone identifies as such. We can say that a woman is a woman because identify as a woman, but it is not really self-identification, but may allow that person to say they are that gender. It is something more complex that they arrive eventually post hoc, essentially. I don't know if I explain my position well.
I think I understand what your position is. And to be clear, I wasn't trying to necessarily say that you were intentionally straw manning the self-ID argument. It's an unfortunate consequence of the virality of anti-trans propaganda that straw man versions of our positions are put forth as the position that trans activists are advocating for when we're not. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people, that's the first thing they see, and so they don't, that's the strongest point in their head, as that's what becomes the true self-ID position. But I just, I don't know. I have more thoughts about pushing back on the prescriptivist notion, because it's not that because they identify that way, that makes them a woman. It's that I only know that they're a woman because they have identified that way to me. And of course, I leave room for the fact that they could be lying. But I think I would seem like a fucking crazy person if every time somebody told me they were a woman, I was like, yeah, but can you prove it? Like, that's unhinged and unnecessary, because most people are being honest about it. But anyway, David, I appreciate the conversation, but we do got to move on and get to the rest of these callers. So
yes.
Great.
Two last things. The first thing is, indeed, my perspective is not from an outsider perspective, but more from that person perspective. If that person, not another person, is able to say that is a woman, it's because he have something else, he associated with but something else to that concept. And then one last thing, indeed, I want to leave space to other caller, is that I'm making with another friend a video. I don't know if you have some time, but we would like to share that video in private before we public that video, and we would like your input on it, because we may have certain differences in perspective, but I think it is important for us to see if we get something wrong, or if there is something about your experiences that we didn't encounter. So if it is possible, it will come
David,
in months.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome to send stuff, but I'm not going to promise that I will have time to look at it. But
okay. Likewise.
I'm sure you're always welcome.
Twitter and my email with the line are open options for that. But
don't send me an email. If you send me an email, I won't read it. That is a fact.
Fair enough. Anyway, thank you, David. We'll talk to you another time. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
I do wish.
One thing
Oh, sorry. Go on.
just sometimes when a conversation like just grazes past something that loads about, and then just goes off into something boring, and you just wish that people, like when you just get near the definition of species and you're like, come on, let's go. One thing that was said in the conversation was that Italians aren't a race, and that's true today. But interestingly, Italians are white people now, but they weren't in the 40s, even as recently as the 40s. And that's not my opinion. That's just how society treated them.
Oh yeah, no, they got all the racist tropes. There's you can look up historical news articles where every racist trope you've heard about black people in America in like the modern day, they were saying about Irish people and Italian people not that long ago.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, I also there's a few things I wanted to jump in on. Sometimes I think I understand most of what David said, but the language barrier makes it also so I'm like trying to piece everything together. But David does really good English. I mean, I can't speak fluently in any other language, so he's doing better than I am. All right, let's keep trucking. We've got, I think the next three are not spicy, so we're just going to take them in the order they came in. But again, hang on the line. We're going to get to all of you, hopefully. We're talking to next CJ in England. Pronouns are she, her. CJ, you are live on the line. What's going on?
Hi there, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So just before I bring up my point, I just wanted to say to both of you that I think you do like amazing jobs in the face of like, it must just feel like having to strap on a pair of boots and just wade through like so much shit sometimes. And you guys just do such a fantastic job and make the world a better place. So amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, you.
DJ.
That's very kind.
So the reason I'm calling is, yeah, sorry. The reason I'm calling is to get some advice from my trans sister. We're both older women, and she transitioned quite late in life. It took her a while to figure out everything. I don't think it was so easy when we were growing up, like in the 70s, to sort of really know much about gender identity and so on. And she's been taking hormones for 7 years, but she hasn't really had any kind of trans health care in the UK. And she's had to stop her treatment now because she's had like massive pulmonary embolism, and you know, they won't let her keep taking her hormones. So she's terrified of, you know, like losing her hair and growing facial hair, and she's coping with hormone spotty eruptions and so on. She's pretty down about things, and also recovering from this huge medical setback. So I'm just really asking, where can I find resources for her? What can I do for her? What can I buy for her? How can I make her feel better, you know?
I mean,
that's very kind of you.
Katie's going to know the England better. I will say that real quickly before Katie goes off with this. Obviously, there are ways to get hormones that are not necessarily approved, and I don't want to say much more than that without, I think you probably can figure out how to use Google going forward. There are things you could do. I think there are also some doctors out there, maybe some private doctors, who would consider making it a choice on the patient, because really, first of all, the doctors are not wrong. There like with any medication, like with any healthcare, there are risks and side effects, and heart health is one of them. It's probably something I'm going to have to face. I have massive heart issues on both sides of my family. I'm like basically guaranteed to have a heart attack by the time I'm 50. But I think there are some private doctors who are going to acknowledge that. I think for a lot of trans people, if the choices are be miserable and get like an extra 3 years out of my life, or maybe have my risk of heart attack slightly higher, but be happier in my body, I think that is a risk that the patient should be able to opt into if they are made aware of the risks, and probably have to sign some sort of documentation acknowledging that they're aware of the risks. That's how we do informed consent in the US, at least for healthcare. You have to read through the potential risks and say, yes, I'm accepting that these are risks of healthcare. But yeah, as far as I don't know if private doctors are able to do that in the UK. I think they are in the US, but there's probably some level of oversight that could make that be a problem.
So can I just the issue with her is that her GP has been prescribing hormones for her, but she hasn't had any monitoring of that or any follow-up. She was originally living abroad when she first got her kind of gender identity confirmation, I guess, and was prescribed hormones by a doctor overseas. And so she was taking the biggest dose of estrogen and also testosterone blockers that she could get hold of. And her GP and even the doctors in the hospital are prepared to continue that, but her lungs were full of clots. She had deep vein thrombosis, and she knows that she's very, very likely to die if she continues doing it. So I don't think realistically she can do that anymore.
So, sorry, Katy, I know you're trying to jump in. Can I ask, do you know what type of hormone she was taking? Were they oral pills, or was it a patch, or what method?
It was definitely oral pills, because she tried the patch. And like everyone in our family, we all got terrible skin, and she was getting horrible skin rashes and so on with the patches. So there's definitely pills.
So I think this is really, in my understanding, is that those are the only two methods of estrogen for the UK, which is really awful, because my understanding of the mechanism by which your body digests the hormone pills, I actually had, so when you take the pill, right, there are two forms of estrogen. There's one that is very weak, but carries all the same risks if that number is elevated as if the normal estrogen type is elevated, as in deep vein thrombosis and things like that. But it doesn't affect your presentation of your body at all. For a lot of people, when they take the pill, it is meant to be the stronger type of estrogen, but it gets converted into the weaker form estrone in your liver. When I was initially starting hormones, I had an extremely high estrone level. I'm talking almost twice as high as any cis woman's level would be normally. And my doctor had to do what is available in the US, which is injections. And now I'm actually on the pellet, which has been the best thing in the fucking world. I can't believe this is not accessible everywhere. Whatever risks come with it, I am so open into, because it's made my life a million times better. But yeah, you said that she wasn't getting checkups, and that is a huge red flag for me, in combination with the fact that she's on oral pills, because that very well could be what's causing the health risks. I'm not saying it is for sure. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not her doctor, even if I was. But that is a really common thing that affects a lot of trans people, where they didn't feel like they were getting results from the pills, or they had health concerns like your sister did. And it turned out to be because, in part, their levels of the estrone were extremely high, but their level of estradiol were not high, because everything was getting converted. So I wonder if there's a way to investigate that. But sorry, Katy.
It's just so hard to get the support for her, because the GP was prepared to fulfill the prescription because it had been prescribed for her, but was too nervous to kind of take on all of her trans-related healthcare, and she's been on waiting lists for years and years.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck at all. GPs, no. if you're lucky, the GP will be yeah, I'll just do what I'm told, and I won't do anything else. I haven't had any of my stuff monitored. Arden, I've never had a test for estrone or estradiol. Literally, they've never done that comparison.
Yeah.
I haven't had a hormone. I did my first blood taken in 4 years, since before lockdown, 2 weeks ago. There's just standard here. It's just absolutely broken and garbage. And the reason I want to say that is not to make this about me or anything. It's just to highlight to anyone watching who doesn't realize how bad trans healthcare is in the UK. I'm not surprised at all that she's had absolutely no help, or that no one's even discussed alternate forms of medicine with her. I think, it might be worth talking to other doctors and stuff, but like you say, maybe she's very unwilling to. I think if I had clots in my lungs, I would be terrified about just switching to a different form of estrogen. It's I don't know what I would do in that. Yeah, exactly. It must be terrifying. I would say what you can do as her, sister or friend or or whatever is like just let her know that you're in this with her and like you're a team, and you know, if whatever she ends up doing, you're going to support her in it, and be prepared to take on some of the like administrative burden. Like there's going to be things like doing medical tests and ringing up doctors and filling in forms, and that is overwhelming to a healthy person with no mental health issues, and to someone who is worried about dying, or somebody who has to deal with the extra nightmare of it being about trans stuff, it's really difficult. And you know, even if you can just be there for that, that'll make a big difference. And then just like the other thing you mentioned about like losing hair and facial hair and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know how old she is, but hormone levels change through your life naturally. Okay. So, I mean, it's potentially true that, you know, her testosterone might bounce back up a bit, but then it may or may not lead to those things. I don't think that that's necessarily a certain. But also, even if it does start happening, there are answers to facial hair removal, and there are answers to hair loss. I mean, obviously, as soon as you start wanting answers to these things, it starts costing money. And it, you know, if you're having to rely on the NHS for trans healthcare, then it's unlikely you have unlimited money that you need for all of these things. But there are also, I mean, people get by to some degree. You can, it's horrible to like be recommending people like, oh, you can pluck the facial hair on your face with tweezers, because that's horrible. It takes ages, and you know, I've tried it, but it is the thing that some people in history have got by doing, and have still managed to live fulfilling lives, you know, as a trans person. I think you've just got to, I don't know, you obviously, people deal with things in different ways, and I'm not a therapist, but how I have dealt with things like this is to try and break them up into small parts and be like, okay, I'm worried about facial hair. So, here are the things that might happen and might not. And here are the possible solutions in order of what I can afford and what's going to work and all this important. And that is like one issue. And when it's at the front of my mind, that is the thing I'll look at. Right, here's another issue, like hair loss. What are the options for this? And et cetera, and try and break it down. And that's the kind of thing you, as a sister or friend or whatever, can do to help, is you can be there to be the soundboard, or also to help organize thoughts or to make suggestions on these kinds of things, because that will make, I think, a big difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do for her. And you know, even things like, you know, she's brought up about being scared about a receding hairline, and I've said, well, you know, okay, I know she doesn't want to wear a wig. She just likes to have natural long hair. But, you know, I mean, I've seen so many trans women that wear really good wigs and look beautiful, that it's not the end of the world, you know, if you get a good wig, is it?
Yeah. And I mean, loads of cis women wear wigs. It's quite common and fashionable in some places. I think lots of it is going to be fear spiral stuff. Like, you know, what happens if I lose my hair and I don't want to wear a wig and I'll be so ugly and blah, blah, blah. And when someone is doing that, sometimes you just have to let them vent and get it all out. And then once they've got it all out, you can be there to help them with all these kind of suggestions. And like, yeah, you're right. It is horrible to lose your hair, but also it's not the end of the world. And both of those things are like true at the same time. So,
yeah.
I mean,
CJ,
I think she's just like imagining lots of potential problems. And I think you're right. If I can just help her to kind of say, okay, well, you know, worst case scenario, maybe, but then there are options, but might not even happen.
Yeah. I also, people have mentioning in the chat that HRT gel is an option in the UK that may be worth investigating.
Definitely.
I would definitely check that out. I think you can even get estrogen gel, like, from not typical pharmaceutical sources that are like usually kind of full of woo products, but this one actually seems to do what it says. Yeah, I mean, I have strong feelings about the proper procedure that people should be going through. I get my blood drawn by my gender care provider every 8 weeks. Every 8 weeks she takes my blood because she wants to make sure that the medication is actually doing what it's supposed to and that the levels are where they're supposed to be. It might seem excessive to some people, but really, I think it's when you're going through things like this where your body is potentially converting the pill through the first pass effect. By the way, the same thing that affects the hormone pill affects pills for a lot of people in a bunch of different domains. First pass effect is a really common problem where your body does not metabolize the pill correctly because everyone's body is so different. I would investigate potentially other doctors or other methods, or sometimes it sucks, but as trans people, sometimes we have to educate our doctors on like what the evidence is suggesting about trans healthcare. I'm really fortunate that my doctor already knew about the pellet, but I had done research before and was prepared to show her the evidence to ask if she was willing to do it anyway. And luckily it worked out. But I think not being afraid to sit down with your doctor and be like, hey, I have heard about the first pass effect. There are lots of examples of people, getting their blood drawn and finding out that actually their levels are fucked up and potentially causing them health risks as a result of this. That's a really serious problem. And I think any doctor worth their salt is going to care about that or at least look into it,
I think that's really good advice. And I'll definitely pass that on and, encourage her to do that. And I'd also add for anybody that's listening, I mean, if anybody's not, if anybody is sort of getting their hormones but not kind of having everything monitored by a doctor, if you suddenly get some symptoms like, she was very breathless and struggling, and it went on for quite a long time before she ended up in the hospital. So I think just, if you do get some unusual like heart or breathing issues, just go to the emergency room like immediately if you're especially if you're in a country like this where you don't pay to do that, and just get checked out, because I think it would have been a lot less of a serious issue if she'd have gone earlier.
Sure. Yeah. I know, I completely agree with that. Well, best of luck to your sister, CJ. Yeah. I hope you call in to let us know if she goes back to the doctor and like they start doing tests and stuff, and you or her are willing and comfortable to share what happened. I'd be really interested to hear, because I decided to ask my doctor about this because I heard about this from so many other trans women. And really, unfortunately with us, a lot of the times our community can be a huge source of that information. So it should be coming from the doctors, but it often doesn't. So you got to work with what you got. Best of luck to you and your sister.
It's really, really helpful. Thank you. And I'll watch this back and look at chat as well and see if anything, any resources or advice were coming up in there as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, CJ. We will talk to you soon, hopefully with good news. That's what I'd like to think.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I saw people asking about the pellet, and this is like the best thing that's ever happened to my. So I get
I'm interested.
Originally, when it was sold to me as every 4 months I would have to get a new implant, but she mentioned that the pellet has this really cool effect where it starts stacking with the previous pellets, and lasting longer. So I got my blood tested in December. And that was supposed to be if, the levels were dropping, I would be at the 4-month mark where I'd be ready to go get my next pellet. Well, my estrogen levels are really high. So she was like, we're going to wait 8 weeks. So that brings me to the beginning of February. I got a test done. My estrogen levels are still that high, which means I'm going to be going like 8 months between actually getting a treatment where I'm getting a new source for my hormones. And my body is still maintaining like perfect levels of estrogen and testosterone, and my estrone is not even a thing. I think there is some increased risk of cancer, which is the same thing that the estrogen birth control pellet. I know. But it's the exact same thing that women in menopause go through. It's called a bioidentical hormone pellet. And they've also used it for birth control. And yes, for all of those populations for whom this has been a treatment for a very long time, they also had an increased risk of cancer, and nobody had to fucking lose their mind over it. So calm down. It's not like saying you're going to get cancer. It's that your risk is increased slightly as a result of it. Also, I think it's typically cervical cancer where the risk is increased, which is, I don't know how that'll play out as a trans woman, but I'm going to find out because taking hormones every 8 months is literally the best thing that's ever happened in my life.
If you're a British cis person, can you just appreciate how ridiculous the NHS has to be for trans healthcare? If I, a British person, are looking at a Texan and being like, man, I live in a third world country for healthcare. Like, what the fuck?
Now, granted, I'm in Austin, and I go to like the best healthcare provider in Austin, but also the pellet never covered by insurance, and it's like $200, which is a lot. But once you start getting to 8 months spread out,
it's not if it's 8 months apart.
It's like $20. What? Yeah, no, it's not exactly.
Yeah,
it's 8 months apart. Yeah. It's like $20 a month. That is just less than my copay for the hormones I was on before that were covered by insurance. Like, it's actually saving me money, and it's better for me.
Which is a total scam because they cost like pennies per day to make. So.
Right. All right.
Anyway,
we do have one caller left on the line. Let's take this last caller and move on to Super Chats. A reminder, we read Super Chats of $5 and more at the end of the show. So if you want to give us money and make us say stupid things, you can do that. But until then...
Especially if they're about wasps.
Especially if they're about us. Until then, we're going to talk to Maxwell in Michigan. Pronouns are he, him. Maxwell, you are live on the line. What's going on?
Hello. I wanted to talk about a particular thing that is kind of like been like a how do I deal with this kind of thing for like years after I came out. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. Don't worry.
But basically, I came out about, let me think, it was about 6 years ago now. And I did not get a good response from my mom. As a matter of fact, she yelled at me. Was very, very upset at it. But now, she kind of like, she's better about it, don't get me wrong, but she doesn't even acknowledge, like, the fact that she ever, like, was unsupportive of me coming out ever. She acts like she was, like, the most supportive person ever, and she's, like, always been good about it. And whenever I try to bring up the fact that she, you know, basically did not take it well in the slightest, she, you know, gets angry at me and says, like, that's not true. So what do I do in this situation where this clearly, like, happened and it's been, like, mentally scarring to me how she originally, like, the rest of my family, have not been as supportive as her. But none of them had the same, like, reaction as her when I first came out, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it absolutely does. I mean, I don't know that I've had this exact experience. I don't think I could say my father is now good about me being trans in any way. But I will say I do have experience with a parent who cannot acknowledge things that happened in the past. And I have also found myself frequently frustrated with trying to be like, I'm not trying to frame you as a bad person. I'm not trying to say that you are, you know, in the doghouse for the rest of your life. I just would love it if you could acknowledge what happened so we could both accept it and, like, move forward. That would be really healthy for me to navigate this. And all I can say is that I definitely empathize with how frustrating it is when a parent will not reciprocate that. I think for a lot of people, the notion that they didn't accept it or that they, you know, maybe hurt you in some way, basically to them means that they're a terrible, awful person. And they don't think they're a terrible, awful person, so they just experience this sharp cognitive dissonance, and the only thing they come up with is to just deny that it ever happened at all. I don't know how old you are. How old are you, Maxwell, if you mind me asking?
I'm 18, soon 19.
Okay, wow. Well, this is gonna sound, wow, I'm gonna sound like I'm gonna hate these words coming out of my mouth. I will tell you, as I've gotten older, I have become increasingly good at being able to accept that my parents were imperfect people and that they were genuinely doing the best they could with the circumstances they had. And that doesn't mean that it was good, and that doesn't mean that it didn't hurt. But I will say, I think there comes a point where you kind of have to be willing to like ask yourself what's more important, having a relationship with your mom and, being willing to sort of accept that she's that flawed person who did that bad thing that hurt you, or to try to get this apology to no avail for a long time. And I think for me, and maybe it'll be different for you, but for me, I spent a lot of years of my life, just begging for, pining for that acknowledgement or that, apology. And it's never came. And I'm pretty comfortable saying I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I don't know. There's not much I can say that's going to be like, here's how you navigate that and make it all better. All I can say is that I sympathize and empathize so deeply with what you're going through. I've been through a very similar situation, and I know the pain. Your parents are supposed to love you and be there for you, and in this case, your mom wasn't, and that sucks. And you deserved better than that, but your parents are people too, and it sucks. Sorry, Katie, do you wanna?
Yeah, I didn't really quite know what angle to respond to you in this, and then Arden's kind of to kind of come in with a really good angle on this, which is kind of the when you get older, which is kind of cringe.
I hate that came out of my mouth, but
But when I first came out and had some difficulties with my family initially, which has since become all solved and it's really great now, but it took a long time. I was talking to a therapist, and she pointed out that you spend your whole life seeing your parents, certainly when you're really small, your parents are like God. Everything your parents do or say is just true and right. And obviously as you grow up, you start realizing that's not always the case. And when you're 4 and you have a tantrum, it's like the first time you start disagreeing with them. But you never totally lose that, or often people don't totally lose that. Certainly when you're 18, there's still a really big influence in your life. It's your mum, it's your superior, your guardian, you're the person who taught you everything, and all of this kind of stuff. But as you become an adult, you actually that hierarchy isn't really, it still is there, genetically it's there and historically it's there, but you are now equals and you are now your own person. And it's very difficult to see that. And in a way, what I was going through, my therapist was in a way you have to lead your parents through this, because this is something you've known about yourself for your whole life and something that they kind of just suddenly found out. And so in a sense, that kind of role of being the person who knows what's going on and having to make emotional space for them as they learn and to teach them and that's almost like the parent role, and your roles are kind of reversed on this one issue. And that's kind of why it feels extra awkward and extra weird, is you're not just breaking this boundary down, or not boundary, you're not breaking this kind of hierarchy that you had in your mind down and realizing, like Arden says, that they're a flawed person, but you're also kind of then having to take on the more responsible role. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, if your mum shouted and now she's denying it, that's that's, I'm not going to say a teenager thing to do because I'm really old, but that's a child thing to do, isn't it? but that is what adults do. It's what people do. So, yeah, I do agree with Arden that sometimes with family members, at least you have, and with friends, you have to just accept that maybe there's just something you don't bring up. Sorry, go on, Maxwell.
Yeah. I was just going to say I simplified it to shouting, but it was much more than that. But it was like a pretty like I got like from my other family members when I came out, I got like Bible preached or like, oh, sorry, I don't believe in that, and then afterwards they might like a few times they would yell at me if I like mentioned it in their presence, but like it was very much more than just like shouting. It was very intense.
Sure, I totally believe that. I mean, I won't detail my family trauma, but the specific events that my dad will deny were traumatizing for me. They wrecked me for years. I had a really low self-esteem as a result of some of the conversations that he will now deny, and the reason I'm trying to go at this angle of like your mom is just a person is it would break my heart to think that you could, and maybe you will carry this as a scar for some time. I mean, like Katie said, your parents are a massive influence in your life, even if they are, bad parents in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that your parents are bad parents, just hypothetically. And it would really break my heart to think that you could let, her view of you dominate your self-worth in any way. It's really hard to avoid. And I think especially as queer people, queer kids, I think we more than anyone really need our parents to be there for us because the world is, attacking us in a lot of ways. And who else is supposed to be by your side except your parents, and how damaging it is when they fail to meet that obligation. But I just want you to understand that like your mom is just a person, and while she definitely let you down and it's totally valid that's going to hurt you, it can't shape who you are, I don't know. I'm kind of mumbling over my own trauma now, and maybe it's not as helpful, but I relate so deeply to like the sentiment you're expressing, and I just want you to know that like your feelings about it are valid. Your understand, even if who knows. It's frustrating when a parent denies the past because in that sort of gaslighting way, you can't go back and investigate, but you're very confident that your recollection of the event was real. And it's when they're telling you it's not, it's like gaslighting where you're like, well, fuck, like, we can't go back and I can't go back and prove to you and show you. I don't have a recording of every moment of our life. But I think it's okay to just accept that your understanding of the story is real and valid. And that's what's shaping your present and your future. And if she doesn't accept it, that's her problem. And, I think you should digest your understanding of it and really sit on it and, try not to avoid those feelings and really let them sink in so that you can digest them and move on from them rather than letting them hang on you where you feel like you have to go to her repeatedly and be like, please acknowledge, please acknowledge, please acknowledge. Because if she's not doing it, then it sounds like it's more about you reaching out for you and not necessarily to like come to some sort of understanding with her, which it's probably going to be fruitless and maybe deepen those scars.
Yeah. It's definitely not with just that subject. She's done that like in many other ones, but like that's one of the like pretty impactful as like a a trans person.
Yeah.
Especially with like the current, I guess, political climate around the U.S. and
totally.
The worry that
Oh yeah, I completely. Do you have a therapist, Maxwell?
I do. I go to therapy every bi-weekly.
Good. Okay. Definitely keep at that. I hope you're talking to your therapist about these feelings. This kind of stuff, parental wounds, I think almost everybody carries them. But yeah, like we were saying, I think for trans people, they can really cut deeper sometimes. So I really hope you're getting professional help for that. Not that it sounds like you are like beyond the scope of our help on the show, and I'm like, I'll go get professional help. But again, I've been there, I know those scars, and I think I was able to heal a lot faster and a lot more efficiently thanks to the help of a therapist, and I'm glad that you have that help as well.
Yeah, I'm glad I do too. I had to go through like a lot of hoops to get it, and recently I even, and by recently I mean about like 4 months ago, I even started HRT. So,
Congrats.
That's cool.
That's so exciting, dude. Your voice is so deep. God, testosterone's such a fucking. It pisses me off, man. How the effect it has on your voice and so fast for trans men, makes me so mad. Not fair.
Yeah, my trans femme friends are always like, I'm so jealous that testosterone like alters the pitch of your voice.
Yep. I will always be jealous of that, but yeah, I'm sorry we didn't have more of like a here's how to fix the problem. I think parental relationships are really complicated, and the best you can really do is just try to determine what your boundaries are and to really keep those boundaries firm and decide what's important to you, having a relationship with your mom or, addressing the reality of what happened and what could come of that. I think those are questions you'll probably have to wrestle with in therapy for some time, but you'll get there and it'll definitely get better. It's the most annoying thing a person that's a decade older than you can tell you, but I'm sorry, it's what I got.
No, it's fine. You didn't say it in like a condescending way. I think it's just, sometimes that's just the answer.
Yeah. It sucks, but unfortunately I do think that's what I would be telling myself if I could go back. So anyway, Maxwell, we're going to have to move on, but thank you for calling in. And if you, maybe have other thoughts about this or you're exploring it more in therapy and you want to bring a different angle to it back to us, we'd be happy to take you again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the call. It was very nice.
Cool. Thanks, Maxwell. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Katie, I think you might be muted too. I thought I just saw you talk and I didn't hear any sounds come out. Oh, still muted. What are you doing? Yep, you're still muted now. What's Oh, weird. Wait, no, that's... Nope. Yeah, you're fine on the soundboard over here. I don't know why. Well, while Katie works that out, I'm going to maybe run through some announcements. Nope, not now. Coming up on the line, we have a bunch of new shows. For example, this Sunday, if you want to debate theism, God, or beliefs in Christianity or anything like that, we have the Sunday show for that, where Jimmy and Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels are going to be hosting this Sunday at 2 p.m. Nope, still not now. This Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time is going to be Forrest Valkai on Skep Talk. Tuesday will be Chewed Gum with Eve Was Framed and Alyssa Lubitschek. Next Wednesday's Hang Up is going to be Matt Dillahunty joined by Daryl Ray from Recovering from Religion. And the next Thursday it'll be Katie and I back here again, where she still won't have solved her sound problem after an entire week. Legend has it she was sitting here the entire week trying to test and getting no results. I have no idea what could have changed because I didn't touch anything on the soundboard. But hold on, we're getting super chats in. I'm trying not to miss any. And also, solve this tech problem. We're going to move on to super chats in just a second. But I want to make sure I get all of these that I'm seeing first. All right. Those are good there. Gonna bring, it looks like Katie maybe is trying to refresh. Bring up our... super chat window. Oh, wait, no, I fucked up one of the buttons. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going to just keep rambling to fill up the dead air while I sort through this mess. All right, now I can move over to this window. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything on Katie's end. I also have Do Not Disturb on my phone, so if she's calling or texting me, I will not know. But let me undo that, just in case. I know, Katie's frozen. We're going to get her back. I just... no, her levels are good there. She's up on the mixer. I wonder if she accidentally like unplugged something. I know she's got a Shure SM7B. It could be a like soundboard or mixer issue. Anyway, I'm gonna start and hopefully Katie will get back logged in and then we can try to see what's going on. How about I also refresh the connection link for her just in case. Yeah, she's trying to reconnect and now we're having, looks like maybe this could be internet connectivity issue. I'm so sorry everyone. I'm trying to solve tech problems on the fly and host all at the same time. It is a good time, I'll tell you what. Alright. That is sent here. Katie's restarting her computer, so she'll be back shortly. She'll be back. Soon you'll see. Okay. We have $5 from Alyssa Nguyen. I can't stick around to watch and moderate today, but I just wanted to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you. I'm so glad. You're all counting on apparently just me right now because Katie's attempting to reconnect.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's back.
I think the driver's just died or something. I had to restart my computer. Sorry, everyone. I am back.
It's so weird. Tech issues are the most bizarre sometimes. That just little things like that can happen. But I was preparing to send you a new link. I got it all ready, but you came back before I could send it. All right. So this was from Melissa. I just read this one.
Okay.
Forgot how to do super chats for a second because I was so frazzled.
100.69. Nice. From Naresh. Czech crowns. I have to be honest, I don't have a job right now. It's hard to find one that suits me well enough. So please be very unentertaining today so that I don't feel motivated to super chat.
Deal.
Well, luckily for you, this was the worst show we've ever done.
Yeah, us not being entertaining is almost a certainty. Also, I'm really pissed. I wanted my skink. She's been so social. I really wanted to show her off this week. And again, she was out all morning. Right when showtime comes, she's gone. She's hiding. She's probably burrowed in under the substrate. She's so cute, but I want to show her to you guys. £5 from Samantha42. Katie, discovering you on Twitter was my gateway into the wider trans community, which then allowed me to realize who I am. Thank you. Hashtag Team Katie forever.
I'm glad that I transed you. Transgender in action. $20 from James Cole. Making a grilled cheese sandwich. Always use mayonnaise instead of butter. Why would you use either? You don't need slime.
Oh my god.
Arden follows my sandwich advice.
That's true. No, listen, you get a crisper finish when you do butter or mayo. I'm sorry you
one thing that came up earlier,
texture on your grilled cheese.
One of the callers said the word faucet, and I suddenly remembered that was a really American thing. We don't call it that. It's funny that we call them taps. Do you not have the word tap?
Yes. No. Well, to us, tap is what you call the water that you get from the city. So, like, the water that you pay for is tap water. But
because it comes out of a tap.
But it comes out of a faucet.
Well, the reason is because, like you say, this person says grilled cheese sandwich, but some Americans just say, I'm making a grilled cheese, don't they? So
yeah, totally.
Fucking Americans.
€5 from Mismatched. Do you have a take on transphobes' latest weapon, the Finnish study, which disputes that gender affirming care is life-saving medicine? Yeah, this is not a latest weapon. They've been using this one for literally...
Well, there isn't. You're thinking the Swedish study. There's a new one.
Oh, okay.
Where, because the Swedish study is full of holes. Like,
yeah, it's methodologically flawed.
Yeah, and the Finnish one, I can't remember all of it. I don't know. It's just some new study where the transphobes are like, because every single thing that comes out, they're like, this is it, the evidence that trans healthcare is all a lie and we should ban it. And you look at it, and like the claim in the study is something like, there's no difference in suicide rates between trans people who are given puberty blockers early and trans people who are given puberty blockers late, or something. Like, it's very, the claim is way held back than what it's being presented as. And then it's like the first and only study that shows this data, and it's just one sample size. Yeah. So, like, I mean, even if it were to be proof of a new truth that we didn't previously understand, it wouldn't really mean anything. So I don't know. It's like this. It didn't come up in the show. I was expecting someone to call in with it, but maybe we'll get it next week. I don't know. If you've been on Twitter on the like right wing side of Twitter, you might have seen them talking about the W Path files, which is some new scandalous leak they have from W Path, which is the World Professional Transgender Health Organization. And it's just kind of, I don't know if anyone remembers the Twitter files, where it just turned out that there wasn't really anything there, and they made this huge big deal over it, and then no one really cared. It's just kind of the same, like, I mean, I'm kind of surprised they even went for the word files again after the last one was such a flop, but they've just released a bunch of conversations between doctors about trans patients, and it's just them being like, oh, I've got this rare corner case, and how do I deal with it and stuff. It's and that, like, the JK Rowling cultist wackos and her herself are all treating it as if you know, it's finally evidence that being trans is a social disease, or we can finally ban trans healthcare. Like this, they're going to talk. If you go online, they're going to talk at you as if they've just got this big leak which proves that the whole of trans healthcare is a big lie. But they haven't actually got any of it, and none of them have even read it, and there's nothing really interesting there. And like Aron, who's been on the show a few times, has done like a breakdown of it, and it's mainly them making claims about what is in their leaks. Like, most of it is them claiming what they have rather than just presenting the evidence, and then the evidence doesn't back up the claims. So it's come across a bit desperate, and it's just the latest thing that they're all posting in my replies, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I felt the need to respond to it at all, but
so
you might see it.
A study that suggests that gender dysphoria is not predictive of suicide in adolescence, which I don't believe that claim in and of itself, which it seems like maybe this is what they're suggesting, that treatment is not going to prevent suicide is the idea or whatever. But really what this is saying is that gender dysphoria isn't the one that they found in this particular study. I think we've seen that in other studies, but also it wouldn't then follow to say that trans people aren't suicidal about being trans, because like there are societal mitigating factors around being trans that lead people to feeling suicidal all the time. Yeah. Anyway, I have not heard about this. I'll have to look into it more. I've been really detached from stuff lately, contemporary news, politics, and media. It's a lot. This is like all of my energy for activism is like here. I show up, I talk to people, and I use my knowledge to debunk misinformation, but like got no more other spoons. $10 from Laser Lizard. Katie, my girlfriend and I have been looking at moving to the UK for quite some time, but recent political stuff suggests it's not the best idea. Is it really as anti-trans as the news suggests? # Team Not America.
Oh, sorry.
Is the UK as transphobic as news suggests?
The trans healthcare here is pretty bad, but on the street it's generally fine. Like, our media is total garbage. If you want to be exposed to just transphobia in the newspaper like literally every single day, then come here. But like going out in the town and just living your life, it's not a dangerous country. Like, we have a very low violent crime rate compared to a lot of places. So plus we're just about to vote in a centrist government instead of a right-wing one, so that might help. I say naively.
Yeah, right. I think there are probably better states to live in the US than moving to the UK. I think I'd probably rather move to like Vermont or like California, or I think Michigan is also pretty good. Anyway. $5 from Jason Jones. Hey, folks, just checking in from Pauls Valley, Oklahoma again. I know we have an active LGBT community in Oklahoma, so want to donate to piss off Marcia. Don't know who you're talking about. Marcia. Yeah, the only chat I see saying anything about Marcia is this chat, so... okay.
Get wrecked, Marcia.
Yeah, fuck you, Marcia.
$4.99 from Gaius Husky. If JK stopped hating others so much, then maybe her new books and films wouldn't suck. Well, I know what you're saying, but actually, if she stopped hating people so much, she wouldn't be selling as many new books. Like all the people she's selling them to are all our right-wing whack occultists now. People loved Harry Potter. No one cares about Strike. I can't remember the first name. I want to say Cramorant Strike, but that's the Pokemon. No one cares about it unless they're a JKR fanatic. So, I don't know. I agree and disagree. Her books would probably be better, but they wouldn't sell as much. So, being a transphobe is big business.
I see people are correcting me. It's not Michigan, but Minnesota that's really good. And my friend Mo said Portland as well. Yeah, Oregon's got really good state healthcare for trans people. I think you can get like a lot of procedures on the state healthcare plan in Portland. $5 from Rick Nelson. The debunked WPATH files were used against the move to codify trans healthcare language in Minnesota. My emails sent, have you contacted support? How have you contacted support? Are you asking, have we... I have not messaged any legislators in Minnesota or otherwise, if that's what you're asking. I don't know what you mean by have you contacted support. I'm like really tired and worn out, but I don't... Am I crazy? I feel like I can't read anything today.
No, I can't. Sorry, Rick, don't quite know what you mean. £5 from Darren Lacey. YouTube appropriate. Thanks for your YouTube appropriate comment.
I'm so lost today. What's going on? 142... 100... Wait, how the fuck do you say that? 100 crown and Corona and 42 fucking whatever. I don't even fucking know, Naresh. Whatever. Since it was mentioned, I wanted to contribute Arden's efforts to becoming a bottom. But apparently it takes a few days for GoFundMe accounts to get verified before you can send money. Hashtag Team Bottoms. Thank you, Naresh.
$20 might be end the patriarchy. Let's only elect women to have powers of governance. I can't remember who it was who said it. There was some like MRA who was like, but you want like all women to be empowered. You wanted to turn the dial the other way, and you want reverse sexism. And the lady was just like, well, yeah, but just for like 4,000 years, then we'll be even. I was like, yeah, okay, sounds good to me. I don't want some bullshit women-only led society, but maybe just for 4,000 years, and then it'll be even. So yeah.
Also, Naresh said the Czech cent equivalent is called HAL weird eye. I don't know how to say it, so sorry. Okay. Probably not weird eye. Is this problematic? I'm gonna get canceled, aren't I? It's about time.
Arden is a racist against anyone from Czechia.
Also, Matt just put in chat, become a bottom. Stop. I
was gonna say that, but I didn't know if I could.
$5 from Jonathan. Take my money, damn it. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for helping us segue out of the uncomfortable conversation.
100 from Naresh. Now, this super chat is entirely your fault, Katie. Thank you. I will brace myself. You know what you're doing when you show that cute kitty in public. You are asking for it.
What is with the sexual nature of everything today? We had a collar make kind of a weird comment, and now lots of chats. I realized I was a sex worker for like 5 years, but bizarre. $9.99 from Louise Richardson.
You really can't read today. 4.
I can't do it today. I'm so. When that April in his shore suit. What drugs did somebody slip me?
Arden, this is just normal English. Are you drunk?
The draft of March hath pursed. Okay, this is supposed to be old English. When
Middle
that
English,
April
probably,
with his shore suit, the draught of March hath pursed to the root, and bathed every vein in switched liquor, of which virtue engendered is the flower, when Zephyrus
It's
eat.
probably from Canterbury Tales, I guess.
Thanks, Louise. I appreciate it. Sincerely, though.
I mean,
actually.
I knew you were older, Louise, but I didn't know you were that old. Sorry. £20 from Jackie Greenland. L women supporting trans people. The most is true. Lesbian women, I guess, rather than loser women. Those groups have been so accepting of me that I now host some large ones in my hometown. I presume you mean groups rather than women. Always. Sorry. Always when the two of you are hosting together. Hashtag Team Arden. Hashtag Team Becoming a Bottom.
Yes, sure. Fuck it. Go for it now.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm glad that your group's all going well.
I can't handle it today. $4.99 from 7 Lions. Orgasms is torture. Let's go to church. Right on.
20 Australian dollars from Game Boy. Good name. I hate JK because I don't understand how she can write a book about a world where fascist wizards refuse to acknowledge that Muggleborn's a wizard and then attack the trans community in the very same way. It is pretty wacky. I mean, I know that lots of people have read more into her books and been like, oh, actually, you know, Harry Potter becomes a cop. Hermione's the crazy one because she opposes slavery. Like, yeah, that is all there. But still, there is this underlying story of, like, you can... Like so I was singing this the other day, like, so many stories just in general, like films, books, everything is like, be who you want to be. Like, even adverts. I got some advert earlier that was like, be who you want to be, you know, invest in Lloyd's Bank or something. And people say that, and then they're just disgusted by LGBT people. Yeah, the bottom line is she's just a hypocritical idiot. Like,
yeah. So. All right, we've got $5 from the Ben B. Gotta head out early. Hate that I'm missing the rest of the show. Keep up the amazing work. Love y'all both, and thank you so much for this. Well, if you end up watching this back, Ben, thank you for your donation. We appreciate it.
£5 from Bumblebee. We could probably keep Katie up until dawn with super chats. Love from the Hive. Thanks. I mean...
Thanks, Bree.
I guess please do, but I guess please don't. Like, maybe just... send one huge super chat and then I can go to bed. I don't know. Yeah.
I like that plan. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. David's call pissed me off, not because of the content, because he talked so much about feeling like a woman that I have Shania Twain in my head. Very nice.
Yeah, it's when she says it, no one's asking whether she's making some, like, ontological claim about the true nature of woman.
Yeah,
like,
right. It was an iconic song when it came out.
Yeah.
It still kind of is. $5 from Larry Fishman. If anything, Arden is too nice and Katie should really lean into her Britishness. I don't think I'm too nice. This is the thing. I don't mind that I'm being called mean. I'm happy to be mean to people who suck. Like, it's this weird thing to me that being mean necessarily means it's, like, bad or that you shouldn't do it. Call me a bitch. That's fine. Maybe I am being a bitch, but I think it's justified when people are advocating for taking away the rights of trans people that I be a little bit bitchy to them. I think they have earned that response.
There's a good / cringe lyric in a Megadeth song where he's like, what do you mean I'm not kind? I'm just not your kind. It always makes me laugh.
Nice. I dig it.
100 Czech crowns from Naresh. Katie, yesterday I talked on the Discord about how bees keep stinging me for no reason. Is it no reason though? Is it like, oh, all these people just keep telling me to fuck off for no reason? Like, for no reason. Really?
Goes around with a baseball bat hitting hives.
Yeah, Naresh is just a dickhead to bees. That's what I'm getting from this. So it wouldn't do for me to praise your earrings. Hashtag Team Wasps. Joking, please, before I become the most hated man. You're already the most hated man on our show, Naresh.
Right. Sorry, I got distracted. I saw Matt talking about our reptile breeding projects in the chat, and I was like, wait, what is he answering? Because I've got 2 modes: transactivism and reptiles.
Lizard brain.
$5 from Charlotte. Exceptional show. As always, Arden, you were talking about methods for E and mentioned something after injections. Could you please remind me of what that was?
Pellet.
There's the pellet. So it's basically like, have you ever seen like the kind of food that they'll give to like hamsters? Unironically, it kind of looks like that. It's a small cylindrical pellet that's like about this long, and they make a little incision on, they alternate from left to right cheek and your ass, and they stick it in like about an inch or so, and after like 3 days, it's healed. As you start to like move, your blood vessels actually reach into the pellet and start drawing out the estrogen slowly over time. Yes, would highly recommend. So good.
£5 from Les Watts. Are Katy and Arden fans of ContraPoints podcasts? I like ContraPoints as a person and videos, but I don't think I've ever listened to her podcast if she does one. I've never watched her streaming. Initially.
I don't have any thoughts about ContraPoints as a person because I have never spoken to her. I think she's made some really great videos. I also am not aware of or haven't watched the podcast. I haven't even watched her most recent video because while I'm sure there's some really insightful, poignant social message, if something is labeled Twilight and it's 3 hours long, I just personally can't. I'm not like an anti-Twilight person. I think I actually kind of enjoy Twilight, but I'm not going to watch a 3-hour video titled Twilight.
I'm halfway for it.
I'm sure she gets to something that is un-Twilight related and that is just like the entryway, but I started watching it, watched for about 5 minutes and was like, can't do it. 100, check Corona from Naresh. For the record, I have committed war crimes. Thanks, Profanity Filter, against wasps. I'm just good at getting away with it. And I just fight it as a way to help my dad not get stung in the greenhouse.
No, don't kill wasps. Wasps are good for you. I disagree. Though I do have a funny story. I can't remember if I told it on this show or not. But one time I was working on with some groundskeepers, and there was some golf course, and the head groundskeeper found a hornet's nest and didn't know how to deal with it, and like I wasn't there at the time, but I assume if like even when I was just like a teenager, I think if it was my job and I'd encountered a hornet's nest, I'd like call in specialists to deal with a hornet's. I mean, it's a specialist thing. They could either kill the hornets, which would be bad, but they can also like move them. But they just like put a strimmer into it. And then destroyed like a grass cutter thing with a little wires, like
yeah,
and which is horrific. And like destroyed the nest. But then there were just angry hornets everywhere, and they had to close the golf course for like 3 weeks in summer. It's just so dumb, like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You want to know the American name that we use for a strimmer?
Oh God, no! Do you have a name for it?
Is it like whacker?
Oh.
I knew you'd get a kick out of that.
Is it a leaf chopper? But no, it's a weed whacker.
Weed whacker. It's because you use it to like trim edges and stuff and take care of. I don't even think people really use it for weeds. They usually use it for like edging their lawn on
You don't use it for whacking either.
True. Yeah, that would be not comfortable, I would think.
Americans. £5 from Jack KV. Wasp fact. Here we go. Best moment of the show. Bald-faced hornets can shoot/spray venom into people's eyes. Kind of metal. Also, serious question. Honeybees or bumblebees? That is a serious question. Call in. No, I don't know. I think all bees are quite cute, but bumblebees are just pretty chonk, aren't they? They're quite a satisfying level of chonk.
Bumblebees are definitely the cutest. They're like like those craft fluff balls, but with wings.
My wasp fact about bald-faced hornets, not wasps, I didn't actually know they could fire venom, which is cool. I looked it up, by the way, fact-checked by Patriots True. But the reason they're called bald-faced is actually because it's from some old word, piebald, which is actually a type of colouring that animals can have, like horses and dogs and stuff.
And snakes. We have several
and snakes. Oh, she knows it. So I guess the snake is like largely black with white blotches. Is that right?
Yeah, piebaldism is where like the normal coloration comes in and blotches over a largely white pattern. One of the main morphs we breed is called a dream skull, which is a piebald trait mixed with a different trait.
Well, these hornets are like largely black with just a few like white bits on them, so they look pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it can range in how it manifests, but yeah, piebaldism exists in a lot of species. $5 from Haley Geringer. Love you guys. Love the show. Thank you for being here and being amazing. # Team Arden, # Team Pellets. Apparently I'm Team Pellets now. Seriously though, it's fucked up to me that this is not like a more widely available treatment method, because it is the best.
£5 from Larry Fishman. Vulture bees make honey out of carrion and they're stingless. I don't know anything about these at all. I'm going to have to look them up.
I think vulture bees are an avatar, right?
Cool, if it's true.
The hybrid species.
Also known as carrion bees. Stingless bees. Okay, thanks, Larry. I'm going to read this Wikipedia page tomorrow.
Sounds pretty metal. All right, we've got £10 from Jackie Greenland. My in-laws, anti-immigrant Brexiteers, adapted fast to my transition and actively police themselves when they misspeak. My own parents, the liberal hippies, still struggle with it. Parents are weird. Yeah, it's interesting. My more accepting side of the family has struggled with my siblings' non-binary pronouns so much. They had no problem with me. And yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. I think sometimes when you're coming out, you have fear and expectations based on people's beliefs that they're going to react a certain way. And I really think that family connections can muddle that so thoroughly where it's pretty hard to estimate how people will react.
$10 even, sorry, from Mo Scoville. Great show today. Is it autistic of me that the entire time I'm watching, I only make eye contact with a picture of the cat in the background? This one.
Amazing. I love that for you. Hey, Mo. Miss you. I hope you're well. We've got $5 Canadian from How to Rule an Asteroid. Also, this is Jess from Canada, our call screener. Thank you, Jess, for calls.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Jess.
Excellent calls today. My trans girlfriend didn't get to go to prom, so I'm having a dress made for her. I did not go to prom. What else can I do for her to make this special? I think that's really cute. Take lots of pictures and dance and have fun. That's all I can think of.
Yeah. And have an awkward kiss.
You got to do the pose, you know, where one of you is like this and the other one's behind them with their hands around their waist.
£5 from Faye. Work put up diversity posters. What are some dog whistles about trans people that are known / not so well known? Love the show as always. You both rock. In the UK, the gender critical movement seems to still get away with saying things like trans identified rather than, as soon as they say identified, like the dog whistling it. I've actually got a slide from a talk I did on this. There's quite a few. One that I often get a lot of flack for pointing at. As soon as they say ideology, same-sex attracted rather than just saying gay, is always sus. But yeah, sex-based rights is another one. There's a few things that they'll say that you just instantly know it's a gender critical person, and they're trying to make some ridiculous claim about the genitals you had as a baby.
I find same-sex attraction interesting too, because the first time I heard that was from like religious organizations who were trying to pitch the notion of having same-sex attraction isn't wrong, it's acting on it that's wrong, which like in that context isn't a anti-trans dog whistle, but it is obviously an anti-gay dog whistle, and now it's kind of like evolved and taken a new form. It's curious how they just like recycle things, you know? Yeah, gender ideology was the only one I had, but 22 euros from San. I'm having trouble understanding the difference between people who say they are a different species and trans people. Everything is very new to me. I'm struggling with my own gender identity as a recent ex-Christian. Thoughts? You're struggling with the difference between people who say they're a different species and trans people. That baffles me, because when I say I'm a woman or a man, that is something that we know exists within the human species. Whereas saying that you are a different species than you are, we don't see that happening in any observable way at all. So it's kind of weird to me when people say that they don't see a difference between those two. And I kind of, no offense, think you're full of shit when you say that. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Like we had that one caller a couple weeks ago who said they have a like autistic 12-year-old daughter who they've had actually improved communication since she kind of adopted the label of identifying as a cat, because they stopped kind of like shaming her for meowing and hissing, and they were like, oh, actually that's been helpful in communicating, and they've had a better relationship as a result. I don't particularly object to that, but much like when we were saying to the caller earlier who's like, oh, I have to accept when you self-identify as a woman, I don't think you should have to accept anyone's self-ID. It's just you kind of look like a dickhead if you don't, right? And so, like, I'm usually not super convinced when people say that they are a different species. That is a claim to me that I think has a much larger burden to meet. Trans identities may have had a burden to meet in the past, but we have a lot of data on it now where I think you could say that it's met any burden that ostensibly exists or existed. Yeah, I don't know. These things are just so completely different. I think, Katy, your example earlier was fantastic, where it's like the difference between someone identifying as like cheese toast and identifying as sexuality. I don't see the difference between these. And it's like, really? You don't? Because those things are so radically different from each other. I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah.
Anyway. There you go.
20 Australian dollars from Osbia. Excellent show today. You can come do better puns than this, guys. Come on. Your earrings are beautiful. That is a slightly better pun. Thank you very much. You might be able to see. Katy, also name a more iconic duo. Katy and Tech Problems. Oh, fuck off.
I like how iconic duo. I was like, oh, it's going to be Katy and Arden, and it's Katy and Tech Problems. Thanks, guys. I feel so loved. Whoa. We just got an infinite regress of screens. Is this Tech Problems showing up again?
What the fuck?
You're sharing your screen. The bottom of the vMix window. Yeah. Click that.
Oh, God.
What has happened? Katy. What? Now she's gone. Are you there? Can you hear me? No, she's completely disconnected. Okay. Oh, Katy's back. And now with a...
My flipping desktop. Like, what is this bullshit? I didn't press anything. Poppy stood the keyboard. Maybe
you had to have pressed like share screen or something. Oh, maybe there's a shortcut.
Well, screen sharing. I don't want to do it. I can't do it.
Maybe refresh. Or is that what you just did?
Oh, maybe it's some... Oh, I know what happened. Yeah, it's Poppy. Hang on.
Poppy.
That's better.
There we go.
But yeah, Poppy stepped on my little Stream Deck keyboard and it changed the scene.
Amazing. $5 from Brincy. Katy, Why do you have an aversion to the term spectrum? Love the show. # Team Mayo.
Because a spectrum is, people think of light, and in light, it's just a one-dimensional spectrum. So when I say one-dimensional, I mean only one property varies. So light at one end of the spectrum has a really high frequency, and light at the other end of the spectrum has a really low frequency, and it's just like a smooth gradient between the whole lot. But when it comes to something like sex or gender or sexuality, it's not just one-dimensional. It's not like here is male and here is female, and it's a sliding scale between the two. It's like someone has genitals and gonads and hormones and all of these different things, and each one of those things, some of those are spectrums in the sense that they're one-dimensional, but even some of those are multi-dimensional. So and then when you say spectrum, the reason I don't like it is because what it can lead to is people implying that there is male and female as two ends, and then someone is like some of the way along, like they're less male or less female. And I think that that's kind of then insulting. You'd be like, oh, you don't have a beard? Well, you're less male than someone who does. It's like, well then, like, who goes around saying that men without beards are less male? Like, dickhead patriarchy people who want to create some strict hierarchy between men and women and say that men and women are not real unless they perform a certain way. So that is why Arden is lizard mode. Oh,
I saw her out. I wanted to get her to crawl into my hand, but she's just not in a mood. She like skittered off down into the dirt. Okay, sorry. $4.99 from Alex Rosas. Totally normal commentary. # team insert name here. Thank you.
Thanks
Alex.
for your normal comment, Alex. $9.99 from Jason. Illinois is an amazing state. We just banning books. That's good. I suspect Florida will retaliate by banning the banning of banning books. The weather kind of sucks, but wait 10 minutes and it'll change. Sounds like
Interesting. I feel like we've talked about this before, Katie, like a long time ago, I think. I don't even know that I necessarily think that banning books is the right move. I think there are contexts where maybe it can be justified, but it's usually not. It's usually misused, so I can maybe understand this law. But yeah, I have mixed feelings.
Yeah, I'd have to see the specifics. It might not be so clumsy, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, so you're calling this commenter clumsy, huh? I see.
Yeah, fuck you, Jason.
$5 from Maya Adkison. Are we keeping Katie up all night? I want in. Also, y'all, Maya was on an episode of Skeptic recently. She didn't even really get the chance to like shine as much as I wanted her to because there weren't as many callers in the show that night. So we got to get Maya back, and you all gotta fucking call in so I can see her brawl. But we're definitely gonna get Maya back soon. Thanks for commenting, Maya.
$5 from Monkey, a typewriter. Katie, you pluralize the word math. Yes, because it's not mathematic. You don't say I'm going to study some mathematic. You say mathematics.
Listen.
You want to criticize other people's English. Take a lift to the car park and drive your lorry away.
Oh yeah.
# team bottom.
You want to see what a piebaldism looks like on a snake? This would be considered a piebald snake.
Oh, wicked.
She also has a trait called orange dream, which is causing some like deeper orange coloration, and it's causing those like symmetry of the lines down her spine. And with orange dream, every now and then you can get a like smiley face pattern on the snake, and if you look right there, try to get it centered, there's a smiley face on her pattern. It's so cool. She's also an excellent. I can't wait till she gets to go to a home because she's a phenomenal snake. She's a great eater, very handleable, super, super sweet. So in love with ball pythons. They're so cute. Thank you. Is that the good or the small or the big skink there?
It's the bigger one.
Okay. Yeah, he won't handle. There's two skinks because they're a social species. One of them is like, fuck you, I don't want to touch you. And the other one is like, she does the thing like little puppies do when they get really excited where she'll like hop on both feet like this, waiting to come out. It's so adorable. Anyway. $4.99 from Jason, also hashtag Team Arden, but that Megadeth song quote nearly swayed my vote the other way. Nice. Yes, I'm not hip on the metal song trend.
Hip. It's from like 1980.
Yeah, I know.
No, when is Peace Sells from? 1986? Let's find out.
When did it become popular? Yeah, there's like no water.
1986! Yeah, mate. Check me out.
Wait, is this one you or me? Oh, wait. I think it's you, right?
Oh, it's me. 555 from the Horsey set. Haven't been watching, but I saw the part about Arden becoming a bottom and figured if it's not worth super chat, nothing is. Congrats, I guess. Congratulations to Arden for her becoming a bottom.
Yes, becoming. That's how that went. Oh my goodness. What is my life? $4.99 from Poor Claire. I can't decide whether to be a sister of St. Arden or a Katy, but I would gladly be a nun in either of your religions or a priestess or something. Well, I'm sure we would both be happy to have you as a member, high-ranking member, of course.
$4.99 from QA. Okay, I had to. Katie, you don't use a strong immunir in the US for whacking. Use it for edging, like Arden said. Oh, so it's a weed edger.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier. We call it a weed whacker, but like really you use it to like trim the edge of your lawn to the sidewalk to make it look like clean.
Sidewalk? It's where we walk on the side.
I feel like that one's pretty fair. It's the side of the road and it's where it's safe to walk, but yeah,
pavement, mate.
You use it to edge. Well, pavement is what we call just like any of the chemical pavement that you like pour to make roads with. So pavement. Is just,
okay.
Like there's a road, but the road is made of pavement.
Instead of whacking off, use it for edging. Okay, next.
Next is 35 Czar.
ZAR. Gosh, I don't know that one.
From Jerry Delange. Sounds French. Or like a French territory.
South African rands. Ah, there you go. Thank you very much.
So that
very
would
kind.
be kind of French, right? Isn't South African? It was kind of like a French
no,
territory
it's not
for a
French.
long time?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, Netherlands.
Oh, okay. Weird. Why does this name sound so French to me? Sorry, I grew up near Canada, so this French part of Canada. What is the best response to trans women in sports is unfair as someone who's both a feminist and an LGBTQ ally?
Call in, because that is a long question and I'm tired.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Sorry, there's a few more that came in that I didn't get into the thing yet. There you go.
€5 from Jottens.here. Brits making fun of American English way of saying math rather than maths, then turn around and say urinal weirdly and totally different from urinate. What do you say?
Urinal? And urinate?
Urinate. I think you say it more similarly. I'd say urinal. I wouldn't say urinate.
Yeah,
I've not even thought about that one before. Urine is not in my brain.
And the last super chat of the day, $5 from Curb C. I feel I was socialized as queer, not a man, or a woman, as I feel I was always separate from that, being obviously queer since I was very young. Yeah, I think this is a complex conversation that would actually make for a really interesting call as well, because I think there are a lot of differing views on how people feel they were like socialized. Like I would think I was socialized as a male, but I was a girl, and so there was like trauma associated with that socialization. Like if you tried to socialize a young girl as a boy is how that I view that. But anyway, that is a whole conversation that would make for an interesting call, but not a wrap-up chat. Okay, we are through the show. Thank you everybody so much for being here. Thank you to all of you viewing. You guys make the show possible. Thank you to our mods for keeping chat respectful. Thank you to Jess for call screening. We really appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe so you can check out all the other shows on the line. And Katie, do you have any last words before I wrap up? I know you like to usually undermine the nice little bow that I'm putting on the show, so go for it.
Someone sent me this weird Magikarp badge. Can you see it?
Is it like
it's
sexy?
Not gonna focus,
is it supposed to be sexy? What the fuck? The internet. So fucking weird. All right.
Sexy Magikarp. Vote Sexy Magikarp in the upcoming election.
That's right. Team Katy is a vote for Team Sexy Magikarp. Katy approves of sexy anthropomorphic animals. You heard it here first. If you want to have your name scrolling up the patron list like this people right here, you can go to patreon.com/calltheline. Do it. Give us your money and stuff. Okay. Bye, losers.